She's the queen. You want me to ask her? Yes.
That's too late. Too late now.
She said that's in here. I asked they were I don't know how they're gonna do it.
I will return to care of it.
Oh, yeah. I called and asked that way.
We're not for discussion.
I'm not discussing.
I know, but it's scheduled for discussion.
Go out that door. That same
I mean, we're scheduled for discussion.
Probably gonna be around looking for me, looking for me, so if not, we'll do that.
Say Santa Claus has to speak.
Yeah, I wrote it in. Oh, that's it.
Yeah, well,
Board representative, that's you.
on the morning. You do not.
No, it's a discussion on this.
No, how are you? Okay, Mr. Lee Hanson. That's so sweet. I haven't had one of these in a long time. This is special to me. I don't
We might be here a while, yeah.
I mean, I need to tell them.
know.
What do you need this to? No, please, no.
I don't.
That I'm going to say down sitting up. I mean, standing up and sitting down.
I don't think so. I'll have to think about it. Hey, look around here. I mean, the other super.
This is the purple corner over here.
Well, no, look right there. She's got,
I know, it's the purple corner.
yeah, where's that Mr. Thomas? There he is.
She needs to be with us, trying to
Be by him.
honestly be with us.
Yeah.
You go speak.
Too, I need to go over there.
Not me.
Tell him look at me and I'll wait.
He talked. He came over and talked to me last night. Because he knew I couldn't get up. This is a handicap.
I just come tell you hi. Somebody, Mr. Rhodes said, look over there, Ralph.
Tom, how are you? Got to look.
Yeah.
He's been bruising all for about a month.
There he is. Don't leave him over here. Thank you. Everything's over on that area. Yeah, nothing is better than nothing. What do you reckon?
Everyone's here.
Where's that file?
Everyone's here. I'm gonna do my best. I know who yeah, they're not. But like I think I yeah,
We're just here to help.
Good evening. Can I have your attention, please? Can I have your attention, please? This is going to be our last call for anyone that is going to present during the public comments. I do need those forms given to myself or to Pam Martin, who perhaps is outside. We also have water to the back, so if you need to go to our restroom, the men and women that's out there, we can let you do that before we get started in about 5 minutes.
As long as it came, well, I asked her to come up a little bit and let's, but you, because more like much better. Much better. Thank you, Midwest Tank. They're the ones that supply us with like land, things like that. I'm almost done. All right. I'll be there. Well, I didn't see it in Saturday or Sunday. I wish I could find it. So they would have today. You can even give her a contact number and say this check was mailed. Yeah, I really don't. Have the option.
What the other day?
don't wanna catch anything to make this worse. Some people pack it. I still take it in, have 3 weeks before I can go ahead and get a scan to make sure it's real. Right. I know, they said it could take up to 6 weeks. I was looking at it, to make sure. Who's this one? Good afternoon, everyone. This meeting is called to order. I would ask everyone to please stand and recite the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. The first item on our agenda is the approval of today's agenda. The chair will entertain a motion.
So moved, Madam Chairman. I'll second.
It has been moved and second that the agenda presented be approved. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, the agenda as presented has been approved. At this time, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the December minutes. I trust the board members have had a chance to review the minutes. I so move that we accept the minutes.
I second.
Any discussion? Questions? Hearing none, are you ready for the vote? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, the December minutes have been approved. The next item on our agenda is public comments. I believe our director has instructed those of you who wish to make public comments, and she will be responsible for timing the comments. I believe we're ready to start. You will,
We are.
The first person you'll identify, and they
Yes.
can come forward.
As we did last time, each speaker will be allowed a total of 3 minutes per individual to state comments, questions, or concerns pertaining to items being considered by adoption or for vote of the board, as well as on discussion items, reports noted on the agenda. Public comment will be restricted to the subject matter described on the agenda. No additional time may be granted for any non-agenda items. Additionally, the public may speak on an amendment to a motion at the time the amendment is offered, should they need. An individual wishing to speak will be allowed a total of 3 minutes. No additional time will be granted. So we do ask that as you are making your public comments, that you do respond to the call of time, that we are respectful in all of our comments as we were previously, and that we have good and positive discourse as we're having this discussion. So with that being said, I will have a 3-minute timer. Should you have anything to disperse to the board prior to beginning your 3 minutes, once your name has been called, you can hand those items to, thank you, to Ms. Mouton, and she will pass those items out to the board. All right, and so we will get started, and as I said, I will signal you whenever your 3 minutes has expired. So, our first speaker is Jeff Goals. Jeff Goals. Oh, and before we begin, I apologize if I mispronounce your name. I am very likely to do that. I have an easily mispronounceable name myself, so I apologize in advance.
Thank you. I'll relate a personal anecdote and then I'll discuss the logic or lack thereof of the amendment. When I was a 17-year-old college freshman, I had to use the bathroom in the student union, and there happened to be a college newspaper in the stall. Well, I started to read it, and I came upon a comic strip that took up about half the page. In it, a college-age woman was at a party, and she had a crush on another woman. The anxiety and the excitement that the character expressed were the same feelings that I had when I was in a similar situation. I thought, oh, they're just like me. It was a revelation. I should have known all along, but I never had any experience with a known homosexual person. There was no one out when I was in high school. I was a homophobe, and I never bullied a person because they were homosexual, but I was frightened, as people tend to be, about things they don't understand. This silly little comic was the beginning of my increased understanding. If you want to lessen homophobia or hatred against any marginalized group, you have to allow people to encounter other people who are different than them, both in real life and in literature and the arts. To eliminate such experience only fosters homophobia, transphobia, and other kinds of hate. Let's talk about the amendment. It says, these collections shall not include materials containing obscenity. There are already procedures in place to deal with obscenity. So this is not needed. And it goes on. It shall not include materials with sexual content, including content regarding sexual orientation and gender identity. This is where it really gets rich. By the wording of that phrase, children's literature could have no character who had an expressed gender or sexual orientation. They'd all have to be genderless, asexual people with gender-neutral names. Pat or Terry or Chris. I'm already running out. I'm pretty sure that's not the intention of whoever wrote the amendment. Rather, they are offended if a character in a children's book has two dads or two moms. To paraphrase the slogan, they're here, they're queer, get used to it. You need to get over your hatred, they don't need to hide. Continuing, any other material that is unsuitable for the children and teen collections. Without specific guidelines, this means absolutely nothing. It could be used to eliminate material for any reason. So it doesn't work. It has to be more specific. And then library events and displays for children and teens shall be held to the same standard. Really, what's wrong with the library having a LGBTQIA event? The library should be serving all of its patrons.
Your time has expired.
Your kids shouldn't have to go there.
All right, our next speaker is William Avance.
I was about to grab a bottle of water, but I'll pause on that for a minute.
Okay. I'm so sorry.
No, that's fine.
Terrible timing.
Thank you. I know that you sacrificed time and your time to be here, and I appreciate that. You're going to hear a lot of stuff today. A lot of people are going to use this as a public opportunity to voice their opinion for or against the LGBT community, but that's not what this is about. This is about a community library, and we're a community. You're going to hear about some petitions. You can't validate who's on those petitions, just like you can't validate the credentials of anybody that steps up here. You'll notice those people that want to argue for the community or argue about the LGBTQ issue, because they'll turn their attention to everybody behind me instead of focusing on you. So I want to remind you that you are in a predominantly conservative parish. We're here because that's how we live. We live in a community like this. So if you I lost my train of thought there for a moment. I apologize. The bottom line is you don't have to answer to everybody out there that has an opinion on this. You just have to represent your community. And that's what we're asking you to do. Represent your community. If you wouldn't give some of these books to your own grandchildren or hand them out in your neighborhood, then why would you put them in the library's children's section so that anybody can stumble across them? That's what I'm asking. And remember, You don't have to worry about everybody else's opinion. There's only one opinion you have to worry about, and that is you'll have to stand before God and give an account for your decision. Every idle word. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Velva Bowles. Velva Bowles.
She's in another.
Okay, I believe she's in the adjacent room.
There's a lag, so when
Yeah.
you call them, it's
There
gonna be a
there
minute.
is a slight lag that we could hear from the time that you speak to what they can hear in the other room.
Absolutely, so I'll make sure to.
Good afternoon. I was at the other meeting last month, and I decided I should come back today, and I'm very glad I did. In reading the amendment that is proposed, it seems counter to what you already have in place with your desire to stop any kind of hate-filled information. And when we think of a library, we think of a place to go get information. No one knows everything, and it's important to know you're safe, and you can also acquire and look at. So I am opposed to the amendment because it is restrictive, and it can result in someone who needs information badly not having a public library source to find it. Thank you.
The next speaker is Serena Bourne. Serena Bourne. Yes, there's a short delay, so I'm just going to pause for a few moments.
Hi, I'm Serena Bourne. I represent the Real Name Campaign. We're an LGBTQ children women's rights group. We're based out of New Orleans. We operate throughout Louisiana. I came here because I see what's happening here. It's the same thing as what's happened in St. Tammany Parish. It's the same thing as what's happened in Lincoln, in Livingston, in Lafayette. It's the same thing as what's happened in Baton Rouge. It's a book ban that's part of a coordinated, statewide, and for that matter, coordinated national attack against LGBTQ people and against LGBTQ kids. This has nothing to do with libraries. It has nothing to do with books, and it has nothing to do with education. The ones behind this attack are well-paid, well-funded hate groups like Citizens for a New Louisiana, like politicians, like Attorney General Jeff Landry. What they're trying to do is they're trying to boost their political careers by picking an inflammatory issue instead of addressing the real problems in this state. When they're coming here pointing fingers, three are pointing back at them. Where were they? Where have they been if these protectors of children, these people who are out here to protect minors, when there's been an education crisis in this state, and when high school students have been walking across the stage, graduating, unable to read their diplomas? Where have they been last year when the Child Welfare Agency has been so underfunded because of budget cuts that they had to leave kids, or that kids were left in the streets at night, in the dark, waiting for hours and hours with no one to come help them? Where have they been? Where are they now? Citizens for a New Louisiana, Attorney General Jeff Landry, where are they now when the Rapides Parish Public Library System desperately needs money? Citizens for a New Louisiana charges $125 for membership a month. They can't afford to donate a penny to the Rapides Parish Freedom Fighters Summer Fund Drive to raise money for essential library services. I'll tell you where they've been. What they've been doing is planning in the wake of the Don't Say Gay bill, of the trans sports ban, of the trans medical ban. They have been part of a vengeance against the LGBTQ community for our 50 years of gains of our movement. We won't let them exercise their vengeance. You shouldn't either. Don't stand for it. Oppose this amendment.
Bradshaw.
Good afternoon. Back in April of 2022, they had me. I'm nervous. I feel like when the Lord called Moses, you know, to take the children, Lord, give me your, speak for me. But anyway, back in 22, I called the director about the most challenged books. Every book on that was the LGBTQ. I'm sorry, you know, it is a parent's right to direct their children. It's not the library's right. And train a child in the way in which he should go. Well, when that child becomes of age, if that's his choice, you've done your responsibility. It's not the library's place. Put it someplace where it can't be seen or whatever. It's a parent's responsibility. Our children have enough to deal with without having to deal with all this other. You know, they go through their teenage years and hormones kick in and so forth and such. But let our families take care of this matter. This is a family matter. Our children don't need this put before them. And, you know, our little Focus magazine, did you see in there for the Methodist home, they're needing parents, foster parents for these children because of the LBG. They're 6 times more likely to experience higher levels of anxiety, 8 times more likely to have suicidal. Why do you want to put something like that on your children? You know, let your children make if that's their choice in life, let them do that. But my children grew up in the library. I'd be afraid to bring my grandchildren now if knowing, in fact, I wouldn't, knowing that there were selections in these young, you know, children's part for them to have access to. And I just pray, they say, God bless America. I'm sorry. God have mercy on America. Let's get back to our grassroots. Let's get back to our principles, to our standards. There's 10 commandments. You know, you don't even have to be a Christian to keep 10 commandments. They're principles in life. We need to live by those principles and by those standards. It's not my object to offend anyone. If that's your choice, okay. But I'll stand before God and I'll give an account to God what I allowed my children to do before they became to an age of accountability. And I want the amendment to pass. I want to keep our children safe while they can.
Our next speaker is Jonathan Cobb. Jonathan Cobb.
Good afternoon. This library board has long had a policy against standing in loco parentis, and it is for that reason this board should today affirm and adopt this resolution. When the library accepts content that's at issue here and sets it in the general area, that is a content neutral decision. But when the libraries take some of the books that they've acquired and they set them in a section that they label children's collections, the library and the government in that instance is making an affirmative and a positive statement. And by positive, I do not mean good or beneficial, but the library is making a positive statement as to the quality and the propriety of that content for the age that that collection is intended. That is unacceptable, and that is standing directly in the face of this library's long-held policy of not standing in the position of parents. It is very obvious, based on the opposition to this resolution, that it is not geared or based out of a rejection of censorship, because that's not what this resolution does. This resolution doesn't remove books from the library. It removes books from the children's collection and puts them into the general circulation. All right? They are still accessible to anyone who enters a Rapides Public Library. And because of that, it is clear that the opposition is in fact geared towards intentionally targeting the children of this parish outside of the control, the supervision, and the direction of their parents. That is unacceptable, and I urge the ward to adopt this resolution. Thank you.
I'd like to remind everyone, as our speakers are speaking, please be respectful and silent so that everyone can be heard. We do, of course, have that delay, and we have a large crowd in this room, so please do be respectful. Robert Corley. Robert Corley. Oh, he's coming, Lene.
Good afternoon. I have lots of information right here, but I won't use it. Part of what I will use is, what did we say a while ago? In God we trust. All of our coins, and I have them with me, the dollar bills that we have produced by the United States government says, in God we trust. All of the coins say, in God we trust. Ladies and gentlemen, why? Because that's what we believe in America. In God we trust. This Bible right here, most Christians believe in it. I have yet to hear a proof that this is not a Bible that was produced by men who were inspired by whom we call God. Our Constitution refers to our Creator. Has anyone ever said that that was not the God? No one that I know of has ever proved that that Creator that our forefathers talked about was not the God who inspired men to produce this book, the Holy Bible. Folks, all of you are aware, if you have read the Bible, that God makes some very distinct, definite statements about the relationship man to man, and the very distinct relationships of women to women. And in sexual relationships between those pairs, he doesn't say, pat you on the back, does he? Some of the time he condemns you if you live that life, I'm sorry folks, to a life in hell. That's quite plainly what the Bible says. I don't want young children, my grandchildren, great-grandchildren, going to a place where there is open material leading them towards this type of life. Not when my God, my Savior, says it is a sin. Thank you.
The next speaker is Ty Cedars. Ty Cedars.
As others have already stated, the proposed amendment is already unnecessary because the necessary books will be taken care of in the status quo. So what is the purpose of this amendment? A quick lesson on stochastic terrorism. Speech that is likely to incite violence. This incendiary language in this amendment is typically, this incendiary language is just removed enough to provide plausible deniability if an audience member takes action. The actions of a susceptible listener are probable but not predictable. Recent examples include the election denial leading to the January 6th Capitol attack, resulting in the deaths of many police officers, of Capitol officers. Also, when candidate Trump said about Hillary Clinton, if she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks, although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know. In this internet age, we all have access to wider audiences. This means that we all bear responsibility for the language we use and the actions they inspire. This amendment contributes to an already tired but dangerous talking point about how gays are coming for your children. In the 60s, videos that warned of the dangers of pot played side by side with warnings about the confirmed bachelor. Sexual orientation is not sexual content. For the same reason that I could tell you that, no, really, I'm not gay, and you would still be pretty skeptical. I need you to know that when you quote passages from books intended for teens and insinuate that those passages are in books for children, you bear responsibility for the damages that occur. This is language that led to Pizzagate in 2016, to the Colorado shooting on November 19th, and to the numerous examples of vandalism of venues hosting drag shows in the last quarter. According to the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, nearly 200 anti-LGBT plus incidents have been reported so far this year, marking an increase of nearly 3 times compared to 2021 and 12 times compared to 2020. More importantly, when you paint the LGBTQ community as aberrant, obscene, and dangerous, you bear responsibility when a young person who is exploring their identity feels that they must take their own life because they cannot be loved by God. Amen. You cannot now say, I didn't know. You cannot say that you are not responsible. Your words are why LGBTQ youth are more than 4 times as likely to harm themselves and why trans youth are 7 times more likely. State your intentions, because if you do not want to destroy queer folks, then why are you trying to destroy knowledge? Knowledge is not dangerous. If you have done your job as a parent, then you must trust your kids to honor your teaching. It is your right to draw the line for your children, not for others' children.
Your time has expired. Christopher Degrapon? Christopher Degrapon? I'm from Wills Parish.
It's okay. A lot of people say.
Okay. Michael Degrapon? Michael Degrapon?
He's on his way.
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Degrapon. I was born and raised in this area, and I wanted to come here this evening and voice my concern and my plea to all of you to accept this amendment that Mr. Morgan has proposed. This amendment it's not burning books, it's not getting rid of knowledge. It's taking the mature subjects of knowledge in books that are for mature audiences and moving it away from the little kids. I have a young daughter, and she loves fire. She loves when I make fires, and she wants to go and touch that fire. And she gets mad at me whenever I take her away from the fire. And she gets real mad at me then. All she wants to do is touch it, but she doesn't know it's going to burn her. But I do. Now, as a parent, I know that fire is going to burn you, sweetie. You can't touch that right now. You don't know that now. You're mad at me now, but later you'll thank me for not letting you get burned. And having this mature content to little children, free to little children like that, that's opening them up to getting burned. These are things that we do need to teach our children. And yes, that is my responsibility as a parent. And I plan on doing that in my time. But I can't be there for her always. I got to go to work. There's going to be, situations that arise where she will be outside of my guidance, and I would just prefer, that those types of books and those subjects are moved in, to some other part of the library where if a parent does want to go and get those and teach their children, then they can, but not just right next to the little kids' books. I urge that y'all vote in favor of this amendment. As we have said, this is a conservative area. I know there are many other people here from other areas, but this is a generally conservative area. And I thank you, Mr. Morgan, for proposing this amendment, and I pray that all of you will vote in favor of it. Thank you.
Natalie Ellithorpe. Natalie Ellithorpe.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I want to remind y'all that this is not church. This is a public library. It's supposed to be for everyone. As one other individual said, it should represent the majority. It should not. This is for everyone. It's supposed to be a safe place for everyone. I don't know about everybody else. I'm usually over my kids' shoulders when they're looking at books, no matter which section we're at. And I have the card, so they can't even check a book out without me specifically allowing it. Now, granted, my kids will never read any one of the LGBT books, even though they have an LGBT parent. They're going to look for something else. It's going to be something with cars or something that about fire and blowing stuff up. Like, that's just what they read. And honestly, they don't read enough, but I try. And so the current policy allows for people to try and report books if they find them or deem them that they should not be there. So why are we changing things? By my kids still being able to see LGBT-themed books in those areas, they see our family represented. Doesn't mean they're going to read it, but they see our family represented. By completely removing them, then you don't see our family represented. And that is not right as well. Now, granted, yes, children's books should be children-themed, but that does not mean we should be removing LGBT books just because they are LGBT-themed. They should be age-appropriate, yes. And I believe last month there was something about pornographic type things. If there's anything about pornographic, I'll be the first to say I am all in on removing that. For others that say, in God we trust and we should be pulling these because of the Christian values of our nation, yes, the majority of the United States is Christian. But there are also Christian people who oppose this. I, for one. And I'm not going to rattle my things as far as being youth pastor, etc., from the past, different things. It's worthless because this is not church. This is a public library. It's supposed to be for all people, which includes the minorities. It includes the people that do not make up those majorities, and so that there are books for all peoples of all types there. So please, I ask that you do not allow this amendment. Thank you.
Hattie Fontenot.
afternoon. I am for this amendment. This amendment will protect our children from this material that should not be exposed to them in their youth. As parents, we are to speak up for them and protect them from all things that can harm them mentally, emotionally, and physically. I pray that all will vote for this amendment, and I thank you for your time.
Sarah Fuhrer. Sarah Fuhrer.
Good afternoon. My name is Sarah Fuhrer, and some of you may remember the Fuhrer Library branch that was on Canterbury Drive. It was a very beloved and popular library branch, but it was quickly outgrown, and it was closed in order to build the West Side branch. The Fuhrer Library branch was built on a plot of land that was donated by my father in honor of his mother, who was hanging on the wall there. And after my father died, Steve Rogie approached my sisters and me about giving the sizable value of the real estate from that branch in order to build this branch. If the library is entertaining censorship of books, of information, of certain populations in our community, then I'd like it noted for the record, and I speak for my sisters and myself, that we wish we could now rescind that gift.
Crystal Guile. Crystal Guile. And Ms. Guile, I appreciate the adjustment. She wrote on here how to pronounce her last name. I appreciate that. You all saw me struggle last time.
I'm standing up here by myself due to the space allowed. My husband is, in essence, standing with me. We speak to you regarding the proposal which would amend the library's collection policies to add the following text. Children and teen collections should not include materials containing obscenity, sexual content, including content regarding sexual orientation and gender identity, or any other material that is unsuitable for the children and teen collections. Library events and displays and children and teens shall be held to the same regard. Okay. Children and teen collections shall not include. According to the American Library Association, Library's Bill of Rights, which this library is under that's where we get our credentials, we're accredited through them. The second policy states libraries should provide materials and information presenting all points of view on current and historical issues. Materials should not be proscribed or removed because of partisan or doctrinal disapproval. The third one states libraries should challenge censorship in the fulfillment of their responsibility to provide information and enlightenment regarding including content regarding sexual orientation and gender identity, or any other material that is unsuitable for the children and teens collection. Well after interracial marriages were legalized by the Supreme Court in 1967, well within my lifetime, books depicting interracial relationships were often banned as immoral or going against the teachings of God, thus deemed unsuitable, simply because there were people who were against what did not look like them. Then it was interracial families. These books, this is from the children's, this is from the teens. These books would not be permitted because of what is on the cover and what it talks about. Now, it's books with content regarding sexual orientation or gender identity. Sexual orientation, this book depicts that, because that is a father and a mother. They are of different color. What does it matter? The same with this. When we say this book is inappropriate, we are telling the children who would see books like this with their family images on the
Your
covers.
time has expired.
We're telling them it's inappropriate. As it's written, I say you should oppose this. As it's written.
Christopher Dagerpong. Christopher Dagerpong.
Hello. Where am I supposed to look? Over here? Okay. My name is Christopher Dagerpont. I'm a lifelong citizen of Central Louisiana. Grew up in Grant Parish, currently live in Rapides Parish. First thing that I would say is I think this issue at hand is largely only dealing with the citizens of Rapides Parish. So I would encourage everybody on the committee who's going to be making a decision today to pay especially close attention to the thoughts and the desires of your constituency in Rapides Parish. There's a lot of people here that are probably not from Rapides Parish. And I don't think that their desires and wishes should carry the same weight as people who actually live in your parishes. As a citizen of Rapides Parish, I completely agree with this amendment. I think it is incredibly logical that adult content not be within the reach of children. I am a parent, and I'm appalled by what some people would like to have within their grasp. And I do not support that notion. I support putting it in the adult section where it belongs, if it should be there at all. And that's what I think.
Dr. Will Hall. Dr. Will Hall.
I am Dr. Will Hall, and I'm the director for the Louisiana Baptist Office of Public Policy. I represent about 1,600 congregations in the state, including 55 or so here in Rapides Parish. And I urge you to adopt James Morgan's resolution because it allows you to fulfill your responsibilities to Louisiana law pertaining to pornography and to comply with Louisiana's Children Code regarding parental authority in matters pertaining to values and traditions. The Rapides Parish Libraries are obligated to protect children and teens from pornography, whether it is gay or straight. A number of Louisiana revised statutes pertain, including Revised Statute 14, Sections 81, 91.11, 91.14. All pertain to various matters that are considered harmful to minors, including pornography, which is defined largely as those materials that depict, display, describe, or prohibit sexual acts, whether they're normal or perverted, and involves a range of activities, whether alone or with someone, even if it's someone of the same or opposite sex, and is an act of apparent sexual stimulation or gratification. Additionally, Act 440, which is now Revised Statute 9, Section 2800.29, became effective January 1. It requires producers and distributors of pornography to employ technology to prevent the intentional or accidental exposure of minors to adult content. Indeed, Pornhub, the largest porn site in the world, posted a notice at the beginning of 2023 stating, quote, Louisiana law now requires us to put in place a process for verifying the age of users who connect to our site from Louisiana.
Do you know Russia owns that website?
Ma'am,
Stop. I'm sorry. Your time has expired, sir.
Can you give me an example of pornography you're
Sir, we're not engaging in that.
ma'am, I haven't, this is a 2 minute and 30 seconds.
Sorry, bud. 3 minutes.
Sorry. I'm trying to, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Kevin Hartley. Kevin Hartley.
See the paper.
Members of the Board of Control, my name is Kevin Hartley. I'm a local business owner in the Rapides Parish area, a adoptive parent of 4, and a children's pastor. I've come to voice my support for the amendment put forth by Mr. Morgan. Research shows that to be exposed to sexuality, heterosexual or homosexual, at an early age can have devastating effects on children. I do believe it is my responsibility to educate my children on such matters at the proper time. Placing literature of this type within the easy reach of my children oversteps my rights as a father to oversee this phase of their education. Placing this literature in the adult section of the library, as Mr. Morgan has proposed, essentially labels it PG. This places the right of education on such matters into the capable hands of parents and guardians to be handled at the appropriate time.
Heath Henskins.
Good afternoon. I just want to thank you guys for letting me speak today. I really appreciate that. This is the first time I do something like this, so if I sound nervous, I apologize. But I just want to speak just directly to the amendment here. I am for the amendment. I want to read it really quickly. I know we've done that before, but I just want to just clarify terms here, if that's okay. It says the library develops collections aimed at the special needs and interests of children. These collections shall not include materials containing obscenity, sexual content, including content regarding sexual orientation and gender identity. I'm sorry, I apologize. I want to start with, actually, it's a definition of the word ban. I've heard that term used a lot lately. I've heard the term censorship used a lot lately. And I want to define terms here, if that's okay. Webster's definition of the term ban is to prohibit, especially in legal terms, to prohibit the use of, or performance or distribution of. I want to point out that none of those terms are used here in this amendment. I welcome a correction if I need to be corrected. But this has nothing to do with banning books. It is asking that these books be placed in a particular collection so that people, whether parents or young adults, are able to identify and access those books as they deem fit. So to claim that it's a ban, I feel is erroneous, and I feel it's a mute argument. I want to also point out that we have movie ratings, which, by the way, is in the public sector. It's not even a legally government required necessity. But we have movie ratings. Even Hollywood, believe it or not, deems it worthy that we should have ratings, collections of movie put in ratings so that you are able to identify which movie you should or should not go see. PG stands for parental guidance, by the way. I want to just stress that anyone who opposes this amendment, I understand. I believe you have your First Amendment right to come up here and speak to that, and I respect you for that. I also believe that it's my First Amendment right to come here and respectfully disagree. I am a father. I have 4 kids. I approve this amendment as a father and as a Christian. Thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Allison Hinkins.
I'm passing out, or I'm going to hand this to her to pass out real quick, because there's 3 of us that are going to follow up on this letter, because I won't get through it. So I hate that for you.
I'm Allison Henskins, that was my husband. We have 4 children and we love the library. We come, and I'm going to read this letter, and so I encourage you to follow along with us because, like I said, there are other ladies who are gonna come up with me and pick right up where I left off. I'll start with Webster's definition of pornography, because we didn't have that a while ago. Printed or visual material containing the explicit description or display of sexual organs or activity. Louisiana just passed HB 142, requiring all pornographic websites to confirm the age of users before they are allowed to access the website. The representative stated the following for passing the law. Access to pornography harms children. It can lead to depression, erectile dysfunction, lack of motivation, chronic fatigue, and tied to human trafficking and sexual assault. Under the new law, companies will be held liable if they do not all, they can to keep minors off their websites. Do all that they can to keep minors off websites, sorry. I wonder how long it will take before the people of Louisiana realize that we need to hold our libraries to the same standards because they too are peddlers of pornography. As I said at the last meeting, I did not speak. Keep going. Knowledge is something too heavy for a child to carry. Today, I will be reading you some of the knowledge from just 3 books that are placed in the teen sections of the Rapides Parish Libraries. I can only imagine how many more books like this exist on your shelves. Before I begin, I would like to call your attention to the person or persons responsible for placing these books in these sections. I'm not sure if they are incompetent at their job or if they're placing these books in these sections on purpose. Either of these 2 options disqualify them for this job, and I recommend finding replacements ASAP. I have prepared handouts for each of the board members from the books I will be reading from, and will appreciate the members following along with me. The excerpts I'm about to read are by no means exhaustive, and I will have to cut them down in number for the sake of time. Please excuse my language, as these are not words that me or any of these other ladies use in our lives. And these are not words that we would normally use. Since you deem them acceptable for children to read, I'm sure you will have no problem with me reading them here. Please note that none of the information will be provided today has anything to do with hating homosexuals. It is about profanity and sexual content, period. Tell me how much time I have.
13 seconds.
Okay, I'm going to end there. When someone steps back up, they're going to be picking up reading to you the excerpts from the books. Thank you.
Danny Higdon.
I too appreciate everybody being here today. I imagine there's a bit of stress, so I'll try not to add to it. I was thinking about the way that different boards that I've worked with and certainly politicians manage the way that they deal with their constituents. And so I really just wanted to focus on that. I think a lot of viewpoints are certainly being shared on both sides, so maybe just another view to consider. Certainly I think this is all about Rapides Parish. I don't know what goes on at a federal level. I can tell you that Jeff Landry turned down request to be involved in the process, so I can tell you it ain't Jeff that's behind it. And in the standards for the policy that's being amended, the 10th thing says community standards. I tried to dig up a definition of that, was unsuccessful. So I'll assume that that means the community that our library serves. And so I think the most important starting point is to consider who are our users. In business and government, we form groups to manage process and policy and place our trust in those groups for our good, not the good of out-of-towners coming in and giving their opinion, that are ultimately not affected by what happens in this library. I think the content, there's been an argument that it's just not graphic. Argument's been made that some of the more graphic content's in the teen section, so it's okay. Argument's been made that the policy in place is fine, that people are doing a good job. And I would say that, you know, it's just not the case. When I think about in the teen section books that say, that encourage sex pics and describes those pictures as dick pics, and tells the teen reader, I just having 2 daughters, that this term is exactly what it sounds like, giving your partner a picture of you naked or being sexual in some way, or receiving that kind of picture. That picture might make you feel good, and it might even turn you on. I don't know that anybody would, in a public discourse, say, I think we need teens to open themselves up to more revenge porn, more social disgrace on social media. So I think that that's failed. And lastly, we're going to disappoint people. Some people want the right to parent. Some people want the right for a child without parents to discover content. And I would say that that ultimately comes down to what you believe about your users. And I believe that most of the parents here probably want to have these conversations in their own homes. Thank you.
Ryan Howell. Ryan Howell.
Hello. When I was a kid, we went to the library all the time. It was one of the best free things my mom could do with us, and it was a magical place. They had a room full of comfy chairs and all the Berenstain Bears you could handle. The librarian wore a colorful sash and a dot on her forehead. She had a laser wand, and running it over the books let us take them home. You could only talk like this no matter what. It felt like some kind of spaceship from the future. But soon I realized it was just a multicultural American library, the cornerstone of our freedom. I know our community values the freedom to hash things out like this in forums like we're here at today. We're all in this together, and I think we all appreciate the opportunity to stand here and be heard. And I commend everyone who wants the best for their kids. But this amendment is a threat to this magical spaceship we're flying in today. Under the guise of protecting our children, it's a Trojan horse designed to sow chaos into this beautiful system we love as Americans, and to make us question whether all this trouble is even worth it. The people who hate the idea that there's a free place where you can gain knowledge, they realize even the most staunch conservatives will still vote for publicly funded libraries like this one. They needed some other issue that would sneak past our values and wedge us apart. So they created this national campaign against books with LGBT content. They don't care about the harm it causes when people feel excluded, or the harm it does to kids to hide books that represent them and explain the way they feel inside. I don't believe our community really agrees with this national campaign against books. According to KALB, there have only been 4 book complaints filed in the last 8 years, but in just the last 30 days, over 1,100 people signed a petition against this amendment. The existing collection development policy has been doing a great job for all these years, and I think we should stand behind it. These outside groups hate the very idea of free public libraries, and they want to use our emotional triggers to get their way at any cost. They know we'd come here today and make a big scene, to make it look like this library is some contentious place with the goal of tearing us apart and tearing our library down, book by book, and then brick by brick. We all love the library. That's why we're here. That's why you serve on this board, quoting the Handbook for Louisiana Library Trustees, to provide services and resources for all people. Our values brought us here today, and I believe the core American value of free speech should be what preserves this institution for generations to come. I urge you to reject this anti-American amendment and keep our library free.
Suzanne Jones. Suzanne Jones.
I was going to speak on the Johnson Library branch, not on this other topic.
That's
Do you want me to
fine.
speak now?
Of course, yes, ma'am.
And it may be a moot point, having spoken with our representative and someone else. Do I need to say anything?
Whatever you
Well,
like to say,
there has
please.
been some talk about closing our Johnson Branch Library in LeCount and using some other form for our community. And I would just like to say that I hope all of you will work as hard as you can to keep our branch open. It is vital to the youth here. Many of our youth do not have access to computers at home, which they do have at the library. In today's world, computers are vital for many reasons. Also, it is a safe haven for our youth after school and during the summer. The reading programs and youth extra activities for youth and adults are excellent at our branch. The reading programs are attended by all ages. Our library is in the middle of town and within walking distance for many of our residents. So I will hope that you will consider keeping our library as it is, not trying to make it active in another way. I know there are things that need to be improved, but I do appreciate your help and consideration in keeping it as it is. It was also given in memory of Mrs. Georgia Johnson by her daughter Ann, and the Johnson family have Lee's Pies in LeCount. So it's the Georgia Johnson Library and Lee's Pies. So thank you very much.
Derek Moncada. Derek Moncada. Derek Moncada.
Good afternoon. I do not very often speak in public, let alone something like this, so forgive me if I stumble upon my words or misspeak. I'll do my best. Thank y'all for taking the time for having this public forum for us to come and express our opinions and our views on this and just be able to express how we feel on it. Thank you to James on proposing this amendment and to standing up for what's right. I know there's a lot of people that come from all over to express how they feel. Some may not be from Rapides Parish, some may be from other parishes. In fact, to vote against this amendment, in fact, one gentleman said, "You do not have a right to draw a line for other people's children." And I agree, which is why I think by placing sexual books in the kids section means you are doing just that. You are acting as the parent. You are acting as the guardian because you, not the parent, deem them acceptable and appropriate for someone else's children. Which is why we are not asking you to get rid of these books, not to throw them out. We're asking you simply to take them out of the children's section. Don't be their parent. Don't tell them what is appropriate for them to see, what's appropriate for them to look at and view and stumble across. Just move them out of the kids section into the adult section where they belong. Let the parent go and get that book for that child and give it to them to read if that's what they want for them, if that's what they deem as appropriate for them. So that's why we're asking you just to move these books from the kids section, not to get rid of them. I ask you today, members of the board, to stand with James, to have the courage to stand with him and to vote for this amendment, to approve of it. Stand with the community and approve this amendment. Thank you.
Ann Lowry.
Good afternoon. I spoke to you last month, and one of the things that I mentioned was that 3 minutes isn't nearly enough time to talk about the issues that I have with this amendment as proposed. I do believe it violates the First Amendment, which has been ruled to apply to children as well as adults. I believe it's vague, overly broad, and we haven't yet learned the details of who would get to make the decisions about which books would be moved and which ones wouldn't. I also question this whole process of how is it that we as the public are required to come and comment about an amendment or a proposed amendment before we really know what the contents are. That seems wrong to me. And it seems wrong to me that we aren't allowed to ask questions after the amendment has been presented, and we aren't allowed to get answers from people who have signed up to be public servants. So, I'm a reader. I love Brene Brown. She says it's hard to hate people close up. And so when I'm in a room like this and I know that there's so many different sides and so many different opinions, I'm looking for what we might have in common. And when I look around this room, I see a whole lot of fear. Some of it is warranted and some of it is not. When I look around the room at my LGBTQ friends that I've worked with for over 25 years as a straight white woman who lives in Rapides Parish, I can tell you that I see fear. I see the fear that they're going to continue to be marginalized and stigmatized and discriminated against, and that they're not going to be able to have their children read material that represents them as a family. People keep saying this isn't a ban. It's not a ban. It is. It's a soft ban. It's an erosion of people's First Amendment rights to take these books from the section for which they were written or intended to be placed and to stick them in with another group of books. It's just like, I don't know, when you were a kid and wanted to go and buy condoms, if you had to ask the pharmacist for them, were you going to do it or not? You shouldn't put people in the situation of having to go and inquire about information at a library that should be freely available. Nobody is wanting children to have access to pornography. Nobody in this room wants children to see pornographic materials. The library's current procurement policy clearly addresses this. And if you find a book that presents pornography in the library's collection, make a complaint under the current policy.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Ashley Martinez.
I am reading on behalf of a letter that Judy Thomas wrote, and I'm about to share what has come out of books that have been checked out of this library off these shelves. The first book is called Dating and Sex: What Pleasure Feels Like. When you are aroused enough that your penis is hard, you'll experience what might be best described as pressure, building up and leading you towards an orgasm. Eventually, you will want an orgasm, and then you want an orgasm, and then you want an orgasm. If you are masturbating, you'll start moving your hand faster and faster, or you might hold your hand mostly still and use your hips to push your penis into and out of your cupped hand, increasing your speed as you go. Thrusting your hips like this is the same motion you will use when your penis is in someone else's body. Wet dreams. A wet dream is when you come while sleeping. If you are having wet dreams on a regular basis and you're thinking about sex, look at porn or being touched by yourself or someone else, but those activities are not leading to orgasm. This might be causing your wet dreams. Masturbation basics. If you are masturbating to the point of orgasm, then you'll probably end up lying on your back with sitting and standing as other options. In these positions, you will stroke your penis with your hand to reach orgasm, but you might masturbate while lying on your belly and rub your erect penis against the bed or the floor, with or without underwear. Sexy pictures. This term is exactly what it sounds like: giving your partner a picture of you naked, a dick pic, or being sexual in some way, or receiving that kind of picture from your partner. That picture might make you feel good, and it might even turn you on. Oral sex. When someone uses their lips and tongue to bring another person to orgasm, it's called oral sex. Common slang includes going down on someone, giving him a blowjob, giving him head, or eating her out. Anal sex. Anal sex, or just anal, is when a penis or fingers or sex toy is put in someone's anus or asshole. You might further specify that the penetrative partner is the one doing the inserting and the receptive partner is the one whose anus is being penetrated. Slang terms include butt fucking and going in the back door. How much time do I have left?
34 seconds.
It's perfectly normal. Sexual intercourse happens when a female and male feel very sexy and very attracted to each other. They want to be very close to each other in a sexual way, so close that the male's penis goes inside the female's vagina, and the vagina stretches open in a way that fits around the penis. Boys and girls, teenagers, and grown-ups too experience sexy feelings when they masturbate. Masturbating is touching or rubbing of any of your body's sex organ for pleasure because it feels good. During sexual intercourse, as the male and female move back and forth in rhythm, the movement of the penis. There you go.
Robert McLean.
Yes, ma'am. Madam President and members of the Board of Control, I want to thank you, first of all, for allowing us to speak here this afternoon. My name is Robert McLean. I pastor the Coteau Baptist Church. We are located in Western Rapides Parish in Police Jury District E. And I'm here on behalf of 297 of my church members today, all of whom are citizens of Rapides Parish. I urge you today to support this simple resolution that is the James Morgan resolution, because it will address two issues. First of all, it will protect Louisiana children from pornography, which is required by Louisiana law. And the second issue that it will address the rights of parents to raise their children according to the values and traditions that they so feel constrained by. Again, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you this evening on behalf of the members of my congregation and myself. I urge adoption of this resolution.
Sue Lynn Mickey. Sue Lynn Mickey.
I didn't grow since the last meeting, so I'm still short. I want to read the definition of public. Ordinary people in general, the community. The library is open to the public. Webster. That's what a public library is. It's not for just certain people. It's not for just certain beliefs. It's for everyone. As a small child, and I think I sent you all an email you should have received, the library was my second home. I lived there. Why? It was safe. It was safe. And it's still safe. We have in Rapides Parish, of which I am a citizen for the last 25 years, we have one of the best library systems ever. I have loved it for 25 years. And when I'm not checking a book, I am giving them books to sell at the Friends of the Library. Why? Because I want it to stand. And I'm going to refer to what one of the ladies did last time with her CD. Would you pass these out, please, for me? Jonesboro, Arkansas is my hometown. Their library system over the last 2 years have gone through these very same changes that they're proposing now. The First Amendment, it didn't remove books, it moved books. And they thought, oh, no big deal. Hey, we'll pass that. It sounds great. They did. The next amendment was to remove books because the books were deemed, oh my goodness, terrible. The pictures you're being given now are from our library system in Lafayette, Louisiana. And they are banned. Charlotte's Web, banned because the animals talk. Oh my goodness. And we never saw Daffy Duck, or we never saw, Wile E. Coyote or any of those cartoon characters. Oh my gosh, they talk. Tom Sawyer. Tom Sawyer because of language. Oh my goodness, he says damn. Whew! That's terrible. What is happening now is, over this involvement of 2 years of all these people deciding that they know what's best for the library and what's best for the public, this spring in Jonesboro, Arkansas, they are voting to defund our library system. 1 mil of funding first, which will cut them in half. It will automatically remove 5 branches. It will automatically close their bookmobiles. It will cause them to have to return grant monies because they can't provide the programs because they won't have the funding. Because it's a system, and you all know that. This is a start. It's not a finish. And as I said before, where does it end? Thank you.
Zach Mullis. I'm sorry.
You said it right. Good afternoon. My name is Zach Mullis. I am the father of 4, and I serve as the pastor of Wardville Community Church. By no choice of my own, I was introduced to pornography in the 3rd grade. I believe it's important for you to know that, though that's not something I usually share in a public forum, because I can bear firsthand witness to the devastating consequences of childhood exposure to pornography and sexual content. But that is not the end of the story for me. By the loving and powerful grace of Jesus, that no longer defines me. He's liberated and restored me. As grateful as I am for that mighty work of God in my life, I would spare others, especially children and teens, that same physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual damage. Therefore, nothing that I have to say today is motivated by animosity or lovelessness, quite the opposite, in fact. These two realities of my life, both my past and my present, compel me to stand here today to speak up on behalf of children and families who will use these libraries. I'm strongly supportive of this measure because it reduces the likelihood that children will be introduced to topics that they are mentally and emotionally unprepared to navigate and comprehend. This measure preserves the ability of parents to discern and determine the appropriate timing and manner of these precious, intimate conversations. It is parents' jobs to have these conversations, and nobody else understands what each child can and cannot handle better than the parents. If the library board agrees with my sentiment, then a vote of yes on this measure serves and strengthens that notion. When certain materials, which not only introduce topics but seek to arouse desires, as you've heard, and influence actions, are made generally available in the public library's children and teen sections, the library is undermining the parents' abilities to parent. Far from book banning or censorship, this measure is a common sense solution that serves the interests of both sides. It helps parents to have these conversations on their terms, and it helps those who would want to locate these materials find them more easily, since it simply recategorizes them in a collection of their own. So as an RPL cardholder and active user, I urge the board members to vote in favor of this wise administration amendment to the collection policies. Thank you for your time. Also, keep the Johnson branch open.
Emily Mullis.
Hi, my name is Emily Mullis. I have 4 children, ages 2, 4, 7, and 8, and we are avid patrons of the Rapides Parish Libraries. Thank you, board members and employees, for working to make the libraries the wonderful places we've known them to be, for allowing us to speak. I spoke to several of you last week, and I do appreciate you allowing our voices to be heard. My husband just spoke of his exposure to pornography at the age of 9 and its devastating effect on his life. And I would also like to personally attest that the devastating effects of pornography reach far beyond the individual. They're carried into marriages and families, and more so. However, I can attest, like you said, that the redemptive work of Christ in our marriage and our family in the midst of such harrowing circumstances. There is also a growing body of evidence that correlates pornography exposure, use, and resulting sexual addiction in and among women and children. I implore you, therefore, as a regulatory body charged with collecting and organizing material for appropriate audiences, to support this amendment as a measure of protection for our children whom cannot defend themselves in this matter. You have been given this weighty responsibility. I have also been asked to continue reading the letter written by Judy Thomas, giving the excerpts from the books that she checked out in the library. And I'm going to pick up on the book, Juliet Takes a Breath. And you also have that. It's like on the 3rd page, I think. Slide fingers deep inside your cunt and learn what your period feels like before it's out of your body. Masturbate to ease cramps and meditate to soothe the spirit. Harlow read about the time she grabbed a flashlight and a mirror, smoked a lot of weed, and explored her pussy. She was 23 and had never looked at her vulva. She spent the entire evening spreading the fold of her flesh, noting the color and density of hair. She liked it so much she did it again on her period, and that was her catalyst into pussy obsession. Beautiful, naked Kira moved into the shower with me. She pressed me against the cool tiles and kissed me. The weight of the evening slid off my skin as the hot water washed over us. She soaked up my chest, belly, and back. Her hands were firm. She kneaded my back muscles and kissed along my shoulder blades. I let her hands roam in my flesh and explore the curves of my body. I didn't think about anything else but kissing her, all of her. She slid her hands along my hips. Kira turned off the shower and led me to the bedroom. Both of us wrapped in towels, bodies warm and wet. We flopped onto the bed. I followed her lead. Where she touched and pressed her lips, I did the same. She kept her hands on my thighs while she kissed my belly. Kira slid up my body, her mouth a whisper away from mine. When our lips finally touched, I was hers. My body had never felt so desired and alive. We moved in rhythm with each other, and when I felt her inside me, I wrapped my lips around her waist and gave her everything. Her hands found their way under my bra, into my pants, and her lips kissed all the bare parts of my flesh. I didn't stop her when she touched between my thighs and my pink boy shorts. Profanity abounds in the book. It's full of words such as shit, damn, fuck, pussy, fuck, shit, bitch, dick, and cunt. While some parents may approve of the language and depiction of sex, not all parents approve. This knowledge is simply too heavy for children to carry. Please help safeguard our children. Is it too much to... Thank you.
Kevin Olivier? Kevin Olivier?
Hello, my name is Kevin Olivier. I am a resident of Pineville since 2011. Actually, I lived in Alexandria prior to that a little while ago, originally from Opelousas. I do want to speak out for this amendment. I do think that people talked about the library being a safe place, but no longer is it a safe place. I'm going to show you some illustrations from this book that I checked out earlier today. You guys like this? I want you to hold it open and pass it around. Can you hold it open and pass it around? That's from your library. It's a book for teens. I have 3 kids. I can't watch all 3 kids going around this library at the same time. One of the other problems is if you go to a gas station and you want to get a Hustler magazine, it's kept in cellophane behind the counter. You need to present your ID and pay for it before you can get it. But not here in this library. You can look at this with penises and vaginas and how to masturbate and pictures of anuses, how to use a butt plug, how to touch your anus, how to masturbate, all this other stuff. This is not appropriate for kids. And this book has the title entitled For Teens. By the way, I need that book back. I checked it out, so I'm going to turn it back in so I don't get a late fee. Is that my 3 minutes? Okay.
No, you still have 1 minute and 45.
Okay. All right, so sex is beautiful. Sex is lovely. I like sex. But sex should be for marriage in accordance with the law of God. It's not for kids. And we have the right to teach our kids those values. But some here in this library want to sexualize our kids by presenting a book that is for teens. And, if we do that, if this motion is passed, then this is a book for teens. I really think y'all shouldn't buy this book. And I'm filing a complaint against this as well. I hope you do pass this amendment. Thanks.
Bernie Peking, I'm sorry.
I'm Bern Perkins, and thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. Thank you, Mr. Morgan, for presenting this amendment. I am a local pastor. I am a commercial construction site superintendent, Rapides Parish resident for 10 years now. As an elementary boy, I had the privilege of living in 1 block of the local public library. I spent untold hours there without parent supervision because my parents trusted the environment. My parents trusted the employees. And I interacted with many, many summer programs, other programs, and it was a real blessing to my life, and I really enjoyed it. It's my favorite form of recreation. It was there I developed a real love for books. I read about 15,000 pages a year. I have over 3,000 books in my own personal collection. As an analogy, I think it would be, we would all agree that leaving a loaded firearm laying around where a child could access it to be very irresponsible. The main reason being is they're not mature enough to handle that item. We should never do that. I think it's also safe to say, now 40 years later, I would like to preserve the same opportunities that I had in the public library system for my 5 grandchildren. I think it'd be very irresponsible for this library board to allow this progressive, and I will say this, offensive to me, material to be accessible to my grandchildren and other children in our community. They're not mature enough to handle it, and I don't know how better to say it. Thank you, Mr. Morgan, for presenting this, and I'm in favor of this motion.
Kayla Perkins?
I'm Kayla Perkins. I am a community member. I've been coming to the Rapides Parish Libraries for 15 years now. I want to go on record that I am in favor of this amendment. I want to reiterate that the motion is not removing the books from the library altogether, just taking them out of the children and teens sections. If you want to introduce your children and grandchildren to these topics at the library, just pull them out of the adult section, please. And let your children check the book out. I don't want to take my children to the library if they could stumble across something like that. On another point, I would like to ask for you to replace the director with one whose values reflect those of the community. I understand that you are voting for the director today as well. I called the director complaining about the list of challenged books that they had out in the library. I was told that years ago the Bible was challenged and on that list too. She didn't seem to see a problem with promoting the filthy books that were challenged last year, even though they were challenged for their unwholesome content instead of their wholesome content. I understand that it's also her who has the library closed so often and gives the employees paid time off with our tax dollars. I don't think any of these things agrees with the expectations of the majority of the community who use the library here. Thank you so much for your time and consideration. Please vote what your conscience would require.
Lori Peterson?
I need you to pass these out. Sorry.
I'm hungry. Can we have a break?
Tell me when you're ready.
Do you want to wait?
Oh, sure.
Can Facebook hear me?
Are you ready?
Yes, ma'am. First of all, I'd like to say that I love everyone, and so does God, for the record. I am, however, for protecting children from adult material. I've explored a few of the books that children and teens could potentially access either intentionally or accidentally. Out of Darkness, which was highlighted on the 2021 Library Week flyer, explicitly describes males who want to have sex with a Mexican female, explaining, and I quote, "Pussy or the idea of pussy or the idea of pussy. A Mexican is a Mexican is a Mexican. Take her out back," us boys figured, hands on the titties, put it in her corn box, put it in her cornhole, grab a hold of that braid, rub that calico. The author explained she was helping the reader understand what the main character, a Hispanic girl, was dealing with. As an educator in literature, I totally understand this, but I still don't want this out there for unsuspecting teens and especially young children to get hold of. Another book, Lawn Boy, which the Rapides Parish Library carries, contains several descriptions of two fourth-grade boys engaging in oral sex, including, quote, "What if I told you I touched another guy's dick?" I said, "What if I told you I sucked it?" I was 10 years old, but it's true. It goes on, another quote, "All I could think about while he was chatting with me was his little salamander between my fourth-grade fingers, rapidly engorging with blood," unquote. Gender Queer, a memoir, available for checkout in the Rapides Parish Library, contains graphic images of kids engaging in oral sex, a sex toy, naked adult male touching a boy's penis. I've given you that, handed that out. Samantha Stanley, a strong advocate for the LGBTQ plus community, spoke eloquently at the last board meeting. She made a compelling case for the need of kids who are questioning or exploring their sexual identity to have access to books that could help them navigate their same-sex attraction. She went on to say, "The Rapides Parish Library," I'm quoting, "The Rapides Parish Library should be a safe, inclusive place for all types of people in all ages. Parents should be empowered to have resources and books to help their children navigate hard and uncomfortable conversations. They and their children should be respected enough to make those decisions for themselves," and I couldn't agree more. But since this amendment would not limit access to any book to anyone searching for information, but seeks rather to keep it out of the hands and eyes of those not searching out such topics,
which could be detrimental to their emotional health if they're not developmentally ready. I feel moving said materials out of the children and teens section would be advisable. If I could flip my notes. Where they would easily be accessible to parents and children. As an educator, it would have helped me to be able to get those for some of my transgender kids. And people who are searching for things on rape and same-sex attraction, how to have sex, sexual disease, etc. It's an excellent way to make the library safe by keeping them out of the children's section. So that would make the library a safe, inclusive place for all types of people in all ages, including the parents of young children and teens not searching for or ready for materials on such topics. For this reason, I am for the opposed amendment. Thank you.
Lauren Ryland. Lauren Ryland.
I have heard a lot of people today thanking Mr. Morgan for proposing this amendment. I would like to bring back the record a little bit and go back to May of 2022. I'm reading from the Rapides Parish Library Board of Control minutes. It says, under public comments, Mr. James Morgan addressed the board regarding concerns about the library's collection development policy. He requested sections of the policy be revised to remove restrictions against hate speech in the collection. Moving forward on that, a lot of us today that have requested to speak had to sign something that said that we understood the rules. Item 2, Section A says, public comment will be restricted to the subject matter described on the agenda. I'm not sure how Mr. Morgan was able to place that comment if it was only restricted to the agenda. Moving on, for Rapides Parish Police Jury, on regular session, August 8th, 2022, on the minutes, page 78 of 80, it reveals that on this day, it says, and I quote, on motion by Mr. Sean McLaughlin to waive the 30-day announcement rule and appoint Mr. James Morgan to the Library Board of Control. That process is in place for a reason, and Mr. Morgan's May 22 outright dangerous comments should have disqualified him from holding public office. Regarding state law, we actually can read the law too. It says, Title 14-106, regarding obscenity, that these provisions do not apply to recognized public libraries. All of these policies and the way that they have played out so far are extremely shady. Switching from hate speech to subject matter targeting the LGBT literary figures seems very intentional, if you ask me, based on the people that are in this room. Lastly, I cannot say for certain whether deception was the motive, but I can say what it looks like. Like so much that goes on in Louisiana, this board appointment was conducted on public record, yet no one was paying attention. I call not only for the denial of this amendment for Mr. Morgan's dismissal, but also that our community learn from this situation and dive headfirst into civil discourse to understand what's going on right in front of our faces.
DC Sills. Jennifer Charbonneau. Jennifer Charbonneau.
Hi, so I am Jen Charbonneau. Public speaking is legitimately my greatest fear, and so if I throw up after all this is over, I will clean it up, I promise. I come here today, I'm a mom of 5, foster care advocate, I want to be gardener. a Christian, and one who uses the library a lot. When I had twins, my twins were premature, and the library was literally the only place that we could go. So if you got my letter, you know that story time was a saving grace for us. Like story time on Thursdays, Miss Pam Martin is out there, and she was our personal hero. She's our friend. Took such good care of us. And so we have used the library. We love the library so much and are deeply grateful for you guys, for the board, the fact that we have libraries available. I'm here because I love to read. I was an English major in college. Carla and I went to college together. I love knowledge. I love books. I don't want to see any of them banned. But I also know that books and knowledge too early at the wrong time can really hurt. I know people in my own family who have suffered the consequences of things that they saw for a really long time. My son is 9 years old, and y'all, I would be crushed if he walked into the library and there were some of the things, and we had to go home and have some really hard conversations because of what he saw here in a place that has always been a safe place for us. I was at the last meeting, I didn't speak. Natalie, who was the last speaker, said something that I thought was important in the paraphrase where it talks about, including sexual orientation and gender identity. I think that can be vague because, as Natalie pointed out, sexual orientation can be any orientation, right? And so we don't want to remove all books that have a relationship in the library. And so it would be my hope what I'm really trying to say. What I am against is sexually explicit or obscene material. I understand that there will be books that have two moms in them. That's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about the things that the girls came up and read. I'm talking about the pictures where Jude or any of my girls could come across these things, and we have to have conversations with them that are way too early. And so I don't know if there's a way to even amend the amendment to provide some clarity. I don't know if that's even a suggestion or open. I do want to, there were two people that I got to speak with yesterday, Ms. Francis and Remy, and I just want to thank you both because you were very kind to me. We come from different sides on this issue, and I just appreciate that we were able to talk about it and express our concerns. And so I do support the amendment of never banning, but moving the books to a place where the kids, sorry, thank you.
Daryl Stagg.
Board members, my name is Dr. Daryl Stagg. I serve as the Associational Director of Missions for 55 Southern Baptist churches here in Rapides Parish. And I want to encourage you to support this amendment for two reasons. They've been mentioned before, but number one, it's a protection from our children from pornography, which is required by Louisiana law. And second, has already been reiterated, for the rights of the parent to make their choice in how they want to raise their children according to their values and traditions. I was at the previous board meeting, and they were throwing out the words like burning and banning. I don't think this resolution or amendment seeks to do that, to burn it or ban it or bar or bash or even bury books. The resolution asks you to bookcase that and move those materials that are offensive and to many into a protected area. So I'll encourage you and urge you to support this amendment. Thank you.
Evan Stewart.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, my name is Evan Stewart. I'm a resident of Pineville, father of two, and a member of faculty with Louisiana Christian University. As you may guess, I'm a Christian, and what that means for you is simply this. I've been praying for you for the last several days. You see, I believe you face an unenviable decision today. On the one hand, there are many who will express their displeasure toward you in no uncertain terms if you vote to approve the administrative rule change in question. They may even spread lies about you. On the other hand, if you vote against this rule change, you do risk bringing down Louisiana law upon this institution and her employees. I want you to understand that I genuinely desire good and not harm for all of you. I do not want certain employees of this institution to have their names entered in a registry reserved for that lowest class of criminals, those who prey upon children. I do not want employees of this institution to be legally on the hook in any way because they complied with the directive of the board. And I do not want this institution to face disgraceful court battles that may cost money, time, and what is infinitely more precious, reputation. But this board risks inviting these very catastrophes if it chooses not to comply with Louisiana Statutes 14, Sections 81 and 91. Now, those who would have you reject this rule change, I do not believe will be able to help you when the consequences of your rejection start rolling in. Nor can they do anything to you after this meeting. They've put their full power on display here and now, and they have nothing in reserve. So I entreat you to have no fear of them. Rather, I appeal to you to act with reverence toward God and toward the state of Louisiana, knowing that the civil magistrate is an agent of God with the duty to wield the sword against those who do evil. That's Romans chapter 13, if you're interested. Know that the Christians of this parish will not cease to pray for you, that God may grant you heavenly wisdom to act in a manner that pleases him and avoids the destruction of your reputation, and that he may grant you many more years of faithful public life. Thank you for your time, ladies and gentlemen.
Remy Tallow.
If we were to check the State Library's website and find the handbook for Louisiana Libraries trustees, what do you think the preliminary page 3 would say? I'll tell you. It is titled A Library Purpose and has 3 key bullet points that tell us everything we need to know. 1, to ensure availability of services to match the needs of all people in the community. 2, to provide people with the means of informal self-education and for supplementing formal education. 3, to serve as a recreational and cultural center for all people of the community. Mr. Morgan wants to relabel gender identity and sexual orientation as obscene. He said it's not censorship. Well, here's the definition of censorship: the suppression and prohibition of any parts of books, film, news, etc. that are considered obscene, politically unacceptable, or a threat to security. Essentially, it feels like he's trying to say that if I want to read stories about the lives of people like myself, I need to go find them in the sexual content section. Did Sean McLaughlin know in May 2022 that Mr. Morgan formally requested the collection development policy remove its restrictions on hate speech and remove the statement ensuring access to materials for children? Mr. Morgan was not on the board at the time and this proposal failed. Was the reason a 30-day public notice was waived for Mr. Morgan's amendment? Was this the reason a 30-day notice was waived for Mr. Morgan's appointment? I hope not. It's unfortunate that not only are trans children not allowed to participate in sports with their peers or be respected by their teachers, but now they will be oppressed further for just wanting to learn about themselves at the library. Trans people and their families are fleeing the South, and some are even fleeing the country because of extremists who know little to nothing about the topic other than one-sided propaganda talking points. I've even considered leaving myself. My health insurance discriminates me and robs me of my military retirement, and there is no way for me to get the medical care I need, especially so when politicians follow false data and implement authoritarian policies. I used to get very upset when politicians spoke about legislation restricting firearms because it was clear to me that the loudest ones knew nothing about firearms. Well, I'm telling you this amendment is antithetical to common sense. If this amendment was to move forward and therefore categorize anything depicting someone with my gender identity as obscene content, it should heavily consider that this language also means any mention of someone's masculinity or femininity would also be obscene. Why are the first actions as a public official to establish vague and purposefully divisive policies? Not only should you vote no on this amendment, we as a community should demand Mr. Morgan's resignation, as he has shown he does not believe the library should be a place for us all.
Albert Tate.
This discussion is kind of hot, and I wish it could be less contentious than it is, but it just is what it is. I'd like to first of all talk about children versus teens. When a child asks, "Mama, Daddy, where do babies come from?" they get an answer. It's not a biological answer especially, or it may be, depends on the parent a lot. But the way you answer a child who asks a question like that is one way. The way you would answer a teenager would be something else. A teenager needs to know where babies come from because they could make one. So I like to say that the library policy has the children's books and the teen or young adult books in different sections. So that a bit of reading we heard before about all the ways that a male can have sex is much tamer than what they will get from their teenage counterparts. At least that was the way it was when I was a kid. I mean, there was nothing about sex in literature that you could read. And so you learned everything you could from the older teenagers who knew as little as you did. So I think that removing things that pertain to children from the children's section or from teens or things that are aimed at teens from the teen section is harmful. Well, that's part of it. I also want to say that I know that people are afraid that that people who are for this or against this amendment are groomers, so-called, because supposedly we want to sex traffic their kids. Well, I don't think that's true. And I think that any groomer who wants to harm a child should get the full weight of the law thrown against them. Children are actually much better armed against groomers when they have access to information, good information. Why keep things in the children's section? Well, because children are curious, and we want them to be able to explore the world.
Time has expired.
Oops, sorry.
Judy Thomas. Judy Thomas.
Hi, I'm Judy Thomas. I don't have anything to pass out. Y'all all have the information from the letters that were read for you earlier. I'm not very good at speaking in public. I actually hate it. And all my notes were already used. But I did have some points that's just people going through. One, I heard an audible gasp when I accused the library of being a peddler of porn. Yet all the excerpts that I got, and plus more that people have read, are all pornographic in nature. Matter of fact, some of you had looks on your faces like you couldn't take me reading those, or my friends reading those, because it embarrassed you. You understood that it was disgusting. And yet, when I had another friend pass around a book, most of you didn't read it, didn't even look at the page, because you didn't like it, but yet you want to push that to our children. So why, if you don't want to look at it, when you're asked by an adult to look at it, and you don't, because you choose not to make that decision, let me choose that for myself as a parent. This is not about anything other than sexually explicit and vulgar language. Let's see. And that's all I have to say on that. Thank you.
Keith Thompson. Keith Thompson.
Hi. If this is really only about sexually explicit pornographic content, make the amendment about that. Calling gender and sexual minorities pornographic, inappropriate, obscene, immoral, it's no wonder they resort to self-harm. My name is Keith Thompson. I'm the chair of the Libertarian Party of Rapides Parish. I'm a straight Christian, but I don't impose my views on other people through the government. Soft bans like this are happening all around the country. A sitting member of Congress recently called trans people abominations. There's a national movement that's gotten over 1,600 books about gender, religion, and race banned since 2021. And where an outright ban has failed, as it has in most areas because the Supreme Court's a thing still, the books are just held behind the counter like they were dirty magazines at a gas station. The agenda is pushed all over the country, and it's not isolated to Rapides Parish, and LGBTQ people are right to be concerned about it. I know a same-sex couple with an adopted daughter. If they wanted to find a book to represent her, to represent their family type, they would have to go to the obscenity section. That makes it more likely that she's going to be exposed to inappropriate content. Some people have pointed at, have brought in books that have, supposedly actual inappropriate content, and I'm glad they're using the correct method to try to get the book removed. Like, bring a complaint if that's an actual issue. But being told that your innate characteristics are obscene, that your identity is something that we need to protect children against, is hurtful. Trans people aren't more suicidal because they're trans. They're suicidal because people are cruel. Books that humanize them might not mean much to me, but it could mean everything to someone who feels condemned as obscene. To be told that by people that love them, that they're an abomination. How would you feel as a trans kid growing up in a home that believes people that are trans are abominations? Would that hurt? Would it be confusing? What if your parents were so anti-trans they blocked it on your internet and you couldn't look up things about people like you? And if they were violent, if they found out you were researching it, which is a legitimate thing that happens, people like that turn to the libraries to get help, to feel like other people are like them. And if they have to come to the library and go to the obscenity section, that is not going to be good for them. There are books out there that legitimately contain graphic, sexual, age-inappropriate content. We're not fighting for those books. If people have found those books, bring them up specifically. But we don't need to use certain instances of inappropriate books to issue a blanket ban on gender or sexual identity. Do conservatives suddenly trust the government when it says it's here to protect the children? Typically, conservatives want small government, individual solutions, and the existing policy can be used for that. Thank you.
Susan Tudor.
Been sitting so long, it's hard to walk. I've sat here this afternoon and listened to a lot of people, and I've known people on both sides of this issue, people that I like on both sides of this issue. I want to make just one point. The issue before you today is not about any specific piece of literature. The issue before you today is your policy for your collection development adequate, and does it have a mechanism for you to have the citizens object to literature if they don't like it? If it is, do you need an overly broad, ambiguous amendment that is going to have a very difficult time being monitored or regulated? So I'm just here to say that I'm opposing the amendment. I don't think it's necessary. I think your current policy is adequate, and that anyone in this parish that has a complaint about something should go through the process that's already in place to have those pieces of literature reviewed. Thank you.
Julie White.
First of all, how terrific is it that we have the freedom and the liberty to come together, speak our minds, and disagree, and still respect each other. I just am really appreciating the liberty and the freedom that we have to do that. And certainly I believe that everybody in here, no one's in here nefarious. No one's in here with bad intentions. No one's in here because of any bad reason. We all want good and wonderful things for ourselves, our families, our children. Most of what I had to say has already been addressed. And I addressed the rating system. I would just add one thing that I just don't, we want information to be available. I love science. I want people to see and have information and have discussion, even if I disagree, to have a discussion. The only thing I don't want, and it is mostly about the sexually explicit that I would be opposed to. I don't want a child stumbling across something that they didn't intend to see. And I think that's probably kind of what we're boiling a lot of this concern down to. Scientific studies show that explicit content can change the brain itself in unhealthy ways, especially a developing brain. It actually changes the structure and the development of the brain and can be detrimental to social and emotional development. This can lead to mental health problems, addictions. We know that's true. Objectification, sexual violence, to name a few. These unhealthy neurological pathways can persist throughout the lifespan and can have far-reaching ill effects for the individual as well as for society. So even though I have grandchildren now, they're not in Rapides Parish, I want all children to be safe and informed and knowledgeable, but I do want the parents to be able to make those decisions for when and where they're presented with explicit information. The graphic is, and it is the sexual content, it's the graphic pictures are especially detrimental and make neurological pathways that affect that child. It makes them want it more, desire it more, seek it more. Now we have addictions. Now we have pursuit of this because it elicit the pleasure centers of the brain. I want more of that. So that's why it's so detrimental and dangerous for children, especially small children. Thank you. I want to thank you for your service. Thank you for your time and attention to this important message. And thank you for everyone that wanted to come and participate. It's a great country.
Thank you for allowing me to speak today. Who is this Mr. Morgan? You're him? Good. Congratulations. You did a good job. I'm all for it. It seems like the folks here are objecting to what's going on. Libraries for years have been segregating books. I remember when I went to college. Now, me and Mr. Corley are probably the same age, and we're probably the oldest ones here. We're both 4-4. When we were in college, during the war, WW2, there were restricted area books that you'd go through these, what do they call that? The drawers with all the cards, you know. Each one of them has a Dewey Decimal number in it. And you'd come to one, I need to work on this. There'd be a little R on it. It's in reserve. In order to read the book or get the information out of the book, you had to go to where the book was. You had to go to the librarian. And she'd let you have the book, no problem. But and some of these things were done. I know if you wanted to look up explosives or jet engines, those books that were written on that was scientific, and some of those things were part of the war effort, and the general public, you had every reason to do that. Other times, in our English classes, I remember one of our English teachers wanted us to read James Joyce. He's an idiot, but we had to read him. So, and the library only had so many copies. So if you wanted to read James Joyce, you had to go and read it there. You couldn't take it out of the library. You had to read it there. And many of these professors had restricted book lists that you had had to do. But you had to go to the library and you had to read it there because you had too many students for the number of books you had. So,
Sorry, your time.
anyway, thank you very much. And thank you, Mr. Morgan. You did a good job.
Chase Burns. Chase Burns. Chase Burns. Thank you all, by the way, for remaining respectful and quiet so we can hear everyone. It's much appreciated.
How many more are there?
It looks like about 8, 7 or 8. All right, Mr. Burns?
Well, I'm glad I wasn't first, and I'm glad I'm not last. She said there's 8 more, so. The library board, thank you for hearing me. I'm here to speak in favor of the proposed amendment. I know you've heard just about everything there is to hear on both sides. I don't think I can shed any more light other than to remind you that this is, in fact, the library board's job to make policy. And I don't think anyone envies you to have to make a decision on this. There's no way to make a decision that pleases everybody in this room or in the other overflow or the other overflow or the many people watching online. As has been stated by those in favor and in support, the amendment does not ban books. It's been said it's a soft ban. I'm not sure exactly what that means. But you must apply your wisdom and your authority here in making this decision. The library children's section, I have been blessed with 5 children. The 5th will be here, born in just a few months. It's an incredible and weighty responsibility that we have as parents. I hope to have many more, Lord willing. Our oldest has just learned to read, and this opens him up to a whole new world, as has been mentioned by each and every one of you. My wife takes the children to the library frequently and regularly. It's been mentioned that knowledge and information is power. Knowledge and information is power. It is weighty. And the question that I have in these sort of situations is, who is using and wielding that power? Is it the power, is it being used by the children, the 6 and 5 and 7-year-olds, 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds? Or is the power being used by authors to influence children, not only with sexually explicit and pornographic information, as has been read from this very pulpit today, but also radical gender theory, well, I think I'm probably almost out of time.
Oh, no, you still have a minute.
Oh, I still have a minute. Well, let me tell you, no, I'm just playing. Typically, as one speaker mentioned earlier, when you go to the library with a large group of kids, it is the parent's job. It's very hard with 4 kids to see what they're all seeing and reading at the same moment. Of course, the ultimate checkout decisions come to the parents, but often we leave our children in the library to read and to roam. It's been mentioned this should be a safe place, and it should be a place free of the sort of sexually graphic material that has been mentioned here today. I'll leave you with this one last quote. If you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. Thank you.
Richard L. Duncan.
My name is Richard Duncan. I've been a member of Rapides Parish all my life, and I just wanted to thank you for the chance to come and speak about these books and questions. I do not look to the thoughts and opinions of individuals and the feelings of children about changing their sexual preferences and our gender identity. These children are looking for answers to questions they have about their thoughts. They do not have the capacity to understand these thoughts and feelings. These books do not answer these questions. They only teach them to change their identity without reasoning. Some of these books use vulgar instructions that children should never see. Children are very impressionable. Parents are responsible for leading their children to do what is right and good for their lives and their futures. The things you teach them, if under wrong pretense, could possibly destroy their lives, physically or mentally. Are we willing to take advice from human writings and opinions that vary from person to person That is not an exact truth. Some of these instructions through books, writings, come from an individual's personal preference that they want to force on other people. This would be unfair to any child. There's a book that has been read by more people than any other book. Most of you have heard about this book. You have one in your homes, or you heard about it. It's the Holy Bible, the truth, the true Word of God. This book was written by man, but inspired by God, the creator of the universe and everything in it, including everyone present here tonight. Genesis 1:1 says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth and everything in it. Genesis 1:27 says, God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. That's from the Old Testament. I'm going to give you another verse, just similar, but it's from the New Testament. Matthew 19:4, haven't you read? Jesus replied, that he who created him in the beginning made them male and female. Do we think God made a mistake on our identity or our children's identity when he made us? I think not. 2 Timothy 3:16 says, all scripture is God-breathed and is useful for teaching, rebuking, correcting, training in righteousness. That's teaching, correcting, and training. If we want instructions on the well-being of our children, the Lord our God, our Creator, should be where it comes from, not human beings. For this instruction, we can speak to a Christian, God-fearing pastor or read the Bible, the Word of God. Proverbs 3:5 and 6 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all ways acknowledge him, and he will make straight your paths. Matthew 18:6 says, Jesus said, but if anyone causes one of these little ones who believe in me to sin, it would be better to him to have a millstone hung around his neck and be drowned in the depths of the sea. Parents, this shows us the great importance of us to lead our children in a manner for their good. Matthew 19:14 says, Jesus said, let the little children come to me and do not hinder them. For the kingdom of God, kingdom of heaven belongs, excuse me.
Your time is expired.
That's 3 minutes already?
Yes, sir. It passes really quickly.
Could I just make one more?
Yes, sir.
Do not want these books put in. And I actually wish they were taken out. There's a teachers, and bring it to our teachers, our kids, and the schools are teaching. We've seen it happen across the nation.
Ron Schneider. Ron Schneider. For those who are interested, we have 5 left. I know several people have asked.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ron Schneider. I was born and raised in LeCount, and I love LeCount, and I love the old LeCount High School, which is 98 years old. And I love the Johnson Library in LeCount. And I love the idea of the Johnson Library remaining in LeCount in the town limits inside the old school where it is now. I'm also on the LHS Corporation Board, which runs the old school. And the board is the LHS Corporation Board is the landlord. Johnson Library is the tenant. So we had a meeting, well, 2 weeks ago, we got word from Solis that the board was, control board was considering closing the library or not renewing the contract, which is due in March. We hope that won't happen. I don't know what the motivation of the board would be to close the library in LeCount. It would be a horrible idea, even to move it to the highway in either direction would make it very inaccessible. There's 10 computers in the Johnson Library. They get a lot of use from students, especially after school hours. So when Solis called, we have some board members here. Our board president is here. Other residents of the town of LeCount are sitting over there. are standing. So we're in support of the board continuing the contract with the LHS Corporation, keeping the Johnson Library where it is. Any problems, we'll be glad to work out. I emailed this 2-page document that I typed up on what the LHS Corporation has done recently and in the past 2 or 3, 4 years to maintain the library, security, safety, hygiene. Celise, I also emailed a copy of this to Celise and to board members at the email address. Celise said she would make sure that the board members got a copy of this. So we've spent many thousands of dollars for security and hygiene, cleaning. I hope the board will really consider leaving the library where it is. Also, we're not interested in a 12-month contract. We want a 3-year contract. Thank you.
Carol Chambers. Okay. Philip Robertson. Philip Robertson.
Philip Robertson?
Good afternoon, or should I say good evening. My name is Philip Robertson. I'm the senior pastor of Philadelphia Baptist Church with campuses both in Alexandria and DeVille. And as a pastor for 28 years, I have learned that the mind can only absorb as much as your seat can endure. So I just want to compliment you all because you have endured what would be the equivalent of about 6 sermons on any given Sunday today. And so thank you for that. We appreciate the opportunity to speak. I am speaking today in favor of Mr. Morgan's amendment and would urge all of you to vote yes. I was here for the last month's meeting, but I did not speak because I simply didn't have enough information about the issue. This is a tough issue for me because I don't relish seeing our community divided, and I genuinely care about my neighbors in the LGBTQ community. I don't hate anyone. As a Christ follower, I strive to love my neighbor as myself. But I am in favor of this motion, this amendment, for 3 reasons. Number 1, taking proactive measures is always better than having to be reactive. Making this decision now will keep you all from having to continually make controversial decisions about potentially thousands of books and events at the library. I appreciate what Ms. Tudor said. However, I think that making this amendment or approving this amendment would help us not have to go through all of those potential complaints. I'm grateful that since 2015, there have only been 5 complaints, as was reported by KALB, but the controversial books will keep coming, and bringing clarity now is better. Number 2, I really do believe that those on both sides of this issue very well may agree more than we disagree. I know of several people in the LGBTQ community and some who have stated today that they too are against pornography in the children and the teen sections of the library. On this, we agree. And number 3, obviously I hold to a biblical vision of sexuality and gender identity, but I realize there are those in our community who do not. Therefore, let's just keep these sections of the libraries free of sexual content altogether. heterosexual, bisexual, homosexual, everything. I know this may sound strange coming from a pastor, and I say this not as the pastor of my church representing our congregation. I just say this personally. And it's sad that we've reached this point, but I'd rather limit the Bible to the adult section of the library, if that's what it takes for you all to protect our children from accessing sexual content and to keep the library a space for parents feel comfortable bringing their kids. Please consider voting yes for this. And thank you for your time.
Helen Moore. Oh, how many more? I'm so sorry. One more after this one. Is she here? Helen Moore? Okay. Maria Lasavia? Lasavia. Oh, I'm sorry. Maria Lasavia? She's coming. Okay, she's coming. And she will be our final speaker for the public comment section.
Good afternoon. I'm here as a parent, not lifelong, but 25, 30 years in this parish, but also as an attorney. So I'm going to ask the board, if you haven't gotten legal counsel on looking at this amendment and seeing what the ramifications are, I would urge y'all to do so. It is extremely broad and extremely vague and would open us up to a litigation issue, things that we don't need to do. The policy in place, that's what you should start with. Is that sufficient, and do we even need to go to this? I submit to you, you do not. The policy in place is very defined. It's sufficient coverage. It gives a remedy to anyone here, and everyone here agrees pornography has no place in our library. Everyone agrees on that. But that's not the issue, so please don't get sidetracked about pornography. Nowhere in this proposed amendment does the word pornography even exist. It is a distraction, it is a ruse. Look at the specific words of the specific amendment and compare it to what the existing is. The existing covers it. It gives us parents a right to complain. It gives the control with the parents. I'm an attorney who represents foster children. There are over 4,000 foster children in our state of Louisiana. We're all here saying we're advocating for children. That's where you can help. Step up and help someone who is a foster parent or become a foster parent. But let us parents be parents. We know what's best for our children. I do not believe we need to go this far. It doesn't say that it'll be sent to the collections. It doesn't say that in that proposal. We've heard that it's not being banned. It's going to be put somewhere. It doesn't say that. The words matter, ladies and gentlemen. They're very broad. They do not encompass what I've heard here today. It is not about pornography. This is about the existing policy allowing us to protect our children, and our parents will do their job to protect our children, who they know is best of what they're capable of being exposed to and when and if they should be exposed to. And then there's a complaint, and it's lodged, and there is a avenue to address that complaint. That's what is here. That's what we have. And no one, if you vote against this, as I asked you to do so.
Your time has expired.
Thank you.
Board members, a point of personal privilege, I'm going to ask Before that, I'd like to say thank you so much for your attention, board members, and the amount of time that we've been here. Thank you. And to the public, we appreciate your comments. Right now, we're going to stand up and stretch. 5 minutes.
I think everyone's in agreement about 5 minutes.
Okay, if everyone can come back, that's 5 minutes. If everyone can make your way back.
You might have to share something, I'll tell you what. Since they didn't have lunch, it might be good to share something. All right, Miss Lily, I'm going to that door.
I don't know, he might be outside. I think he might be.
Please take your seats so that we may continue. The next item on the agenda is the financial report from Ms. Dubrow.
Good evening. I know this is going a little long, so I'm going to cut mine short. You all have your financial statements. I included the notes on the back side, so y'all can go back and review if you like. I'm just going to let you know that as of right now, we still have a little bit of overage that we did not spend. But I do still have the auditor's adjustments and our year-end adjustments to make. And I will present our year-end report at our next meeting. That's all I got. Everything was business as usual. Okay?
Any questions? We have an overage. Yay! Thank you. Ms. Reach Harper.
All right, and if
You
it's
will
okay.
have the floor.
Thank you. If it's okay with everyone, I am plenty loud enough, so I will speak from here. We have a few small updates. We did have several short-term branch closures due to weather and illness during the last 2 months. Thankfully, the closures were very short-term. All branches are working on early in the year refreshes, which is looking at things like the condition of furniture, the condition of their exterior, looking to see if we need any kind of additional maintenance other than what our routine is. We do have some remaining items that the contractor is addressing at our Boyce branch. Those are being remedied. In fact, I'm planning to be there at around 7:30 in the morning to assure that they can get in there to make sure that those are taken care of. We have our friends of the Rapides Library are finalizing steps for a potential grant to allow for the creation of telehealth access at some of our library branches. Our end of the year statistics are currently being compiled, but from a cursory initial glance, it does appear that our physical item checkouts are rising towards the pre-pandemic levels, which is an excellent indicator. And our utilization of services, online services, copying, reference assistance, computer usage in the branches, those all continue to grow. The number of active card holders has increased, and program attendance is also seeing an upswing. So we're looking to have the 2022 final statistics available for all of the board members at our next meeting in March. And then finally, as you all know, the RPL staff participates in many community events, and I know I'm probably going to be stepping on the toes of a few people who are going to be speaking after me, so I'll keep this short. But we did have representatives at Winterfest, the markets, community parades, and some local school events in December. I particularly enjoyed the Glen Mora Parade event. That was a lot of fun. And we had a trailer float along with Pete the Cat strolling alongside. And then finally, I was selected to, again, resume my duties as secretary for our Library Southwest Consortium. And the feeding programs via the food bank have returned now to all library branches. As of last month, it was only one branch, but they have now resumed at all branches. And that is my report.
Excellent. Any questions, board members? Any comments? Solis, can you quickly tell us just a bit about the Friends, the health kiosk?
Okay, it is a partnership that our friends are embarking upon in the new year with the benefactory arm of Blue Cross. And it is for a grant that would allow for us to have set up spaces where people could utilize our Wi-Fi as well as a laptop, some video and audio enhanced systems, and perhaps also some health monitoring devices like a blood pressure cuff, those types of things. And so that people who live in more rural areas who can't necessarily drive in to get to a doctor for basic routine health care or minor conditions that they're experiencing, say you have some type of cold that's lasting a bit long, or you have something else that's going on, they could go in there and they could get a telehealth appointment using their own provider, of course, and get assistance that way.
Thank you. We're going to move on to Mrs. Mouton, the direct services report, please.
Good evening. In lieu of time, just very short, Solis has really hit on a lot of things for the library right now, but I would remind you, because of the season that we're in, we do have an IRS kiosk that is set up at the Martin Library, and you can go by or even look on our website that has the 800 number. I'm looking at Jennifer because it may be.
It may not
But
be
it will
on the
be.
website, but will be very shortly.
But it normally has been there, but we may take it down for the holidays. But it is available for our community because we do not have an office here anymore. So they can use this IRS, they can make an appointment, set a time, and come to our Martin Library and do that. Again, as Solis said, the branches are spending this month of what I call decluttering, refreshing, refocusing on what needs to be taken care of for the new year. And that's all I have.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the Human Services Report. Mrs. Brown.
Good evening, members. We've met today regarding our director's evaluation and an employment contract, which all of that will be provided for an approval by the president, by Ms. Letta, for approval of the contract and the evaluation.
Thank you. We're moving on to programming and outreach report. Ms. Kirby.
Sure. I will be quick also because, let's be honest, we're all hungry. So, keep moving. It's kind of been business as usual. A lot of the things we always have. We did have a lot of Santa visits for December, sent out 582 Santa letters, so we were excited about that. As always, we had our kind of regular story times, arts and crafts, painting, book clubs, all the regular programs we have at all the branches. And we are excited to be launching some new ones in the new year. We're excited for new ideas. The main new thing I want to mention is our new podcast, I Like Being a Kid. The first episode is out on our YouTube channel. Yes, it is on our, it's a video podcast, and it is myself and Craig. And each month we talk about a picture book author and a chapter book children's author. So that first episode's up, but it will come out on the 10th of every month at 10 a.m. So we're excited about the new podcast. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Kirby. Any questions, any discussion? Hearing none, we move on to Ms. Primo. The IT report, Ms. Primo.
Good evening, not afternoon. I have a very short report also. Everything's going really well in the IT department. I'm glad to be able to say that, because I didn't say that last year. And ILS and myself have been making visits to all the branches, and we started the month of January. And we had started doing this a few years back, but just never got back to it. And it has been so successful this month, just being able to go to the branches, find out what their needs are with ILS or IT, and be able to solve some of those on the spot or put in tickets. So it's been very successful. Also, just a few things we're going to do in the future. I'm going to order laptops for the Morton branch, so that they can have 10 laptops to be able to teach classes or whatever they want to do. And just like we have at the other branches, 10 laptops, a cart, TV, all that type of stuff. And that's all I have to say. Thank y'all.
Thank you. Moving along, our next report comes from Ms. Marr, and it's the Public Relations Report.
Okay, so Carla gets to tell you what a great time we had, and I get to tell you what's coming up. I'm really excited. We have a lot of Black History Month programs coming, some health classes like chair aerobics at Martin Luther King Jr. branch and yoga sessions at LaBousse. We have some makerspace classes coming up at several of our branches in February, and a gardening demonstration with the Alexandria Garden Club. I've been super, super busy. I don't have a social media report for you this month, but if you look at the back of my report, you'll see all of the appearances in the media. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Marr. Moving along to old business. The first item, or the only item, is the discussion and vote on the collection development policy. Mr. Morgan.
Sure, I'd like to take an opportunity to clear my name on one issue with the hate speech that was quoted from the minutes, not from my actual speech, but from the minutes where I spoke. That speech is on Facebook on the May meeting. You are welcome to go listen to it. Board members that were there, you were all emailed a copy of that speech. It is not relevant to today fully, so I don't want to get into the ins and outs of what that was about. But I will say a couple of quotes that I said. One, quote, "I certainly don't condone hatefulness towards anyone," end quote. Another part, quote, "I don't wish for there to be any hateful speech in library content," end quote. So again, this is not something I want to get into today because it's not on our agenda, but I did want to, it was mentioned, so I wanted to clear that up. The 30-day notice thing about the police jury, I don't even know what that is. So you would have to take that up with the police jury. I don't even.
We will. Mr. Morgan, would you please just move on to
Absolutely. Since those were mentioned in the comments, I wanted to make sure I had an opportunity to defend myself on that. So can anybody on the board give an argument that says that this bans books? If we look at the policy itself and we look at the amendment that's proposed, those two sentences that says we can't put or we don't put books in these types of books in this section, does anybody have anything where they could say this is actually book banning? I'm open to hear it.
Madam Chair, this is just formality, but you need a motion and a second.
I was getting there.
Sorry.
Thank you. We do need you to make a motion if you wish to proceed with this amendment. And then we have to have a second before we can have discussion.
So we're not in the discussion part yet?
We are not.
Okay, got it. Well, I move that we move to the discussion portion.
You have to move to approve your amendment.
No, ma'am.
It says
I'm
discussion.
sorry. He can open it for discussion. He can. And
Did you just open it
yes,
for
ma'am.
discussion?
He moved to open it for discussion.
So we're ready for a second to open it for discussion.
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there a second?
second.
Okay, so,
Now
can I
we're open
proceed?
for
Okay,
discussion.
thank you so much. So can anybody looking at these two sentences, give an argument that says that this bans books? Again, I'm open to hearing it. Yes, Ms. Cox, or I can't call her, I'm sorry.
This amendment does not say anything about what is going to happen to the books. They could be banned, they could be thrown in another section. There's nothing in here. It's very, very general, very open, and it's very difficult to enforce. Because one thing, I brought my Bible and it's marked with all the places. You would have to throw the Bible out if you followed this.
Okay, so is moving it into another section banning it? If we take a Bible or anything else and it's not in the children's section, it's in another area of the library, does that constitute a ban?
Now, it constitutes separate but equal, and that is something the government threw out in the 70s when I was teaching school. We had two schools in our town, a black school and a white school, and the government said that's wrong. You can't separate things like that. They have to be together.
Okay, do we have a Christian section in our library?
I have no idea.
We do, okay. Is that segregation of the Christians by having a section for Christian books?
No idea.
Okay. As far as the vagueness, I think our policy is full of vague terms. You talk about academic merit, special needs and interests of children. There are lots of phrases in here that leave room for discretion. And somebody did have a genuine question from the public asking who's in charge of the books or something like that on what gets circulated. And correct me if I'm wrong, but we have our library director has the authority to determine what's in each section. Now, she has staff that works under her. If a member of the public wants to challenge one of her decisions, she can bring that to the board. But yes, if anybody else has anything that could constitute a ban or censorship to say that a library can't take a specific type of content, because again, this amendment, I don't see it name any types of people. It names content. So is there anything that we could differentiate to say that this counts as censorship, but the categorization of other books and other sections does not? That would be my question.
May I speak? I'd like to stand if you don't mind. This has been interesting. I've heard some theology, Catholicism, and you name it. I've learned some things about the contortion of the human body. You can hear me? I'd like to repeat. This has been an interesting commentary for me. I've heard about theology, Catholicism, contortion of the human body, and etc. Matter of fact, I turned red even though you can't see it. Brother James Morgan is a charismatic young man. I'll listen to him postulate about the amendment of this particular item. But I disagree with his ideology, his ontology, his philosophy. I think there's some reason to it, but when it comes to reality, we need to go back and think about the preamble to the Constitution. It says in simple, plain language, comprehensible language, it says in a simple sentence, we the people. That means all inclusive. And so that kind of sums up everything without my going into any detail because we've been here for a long time. But I do feel that the way everything is written as it is, there's no need for any deletion and it changes. And so I don't see where an addendum to amendment is necessary.
So in terms of the First Amendment or in terms of the rest of the collection development policy, can anybody point me to a contradiction from?
Now, you want to get into the Constitution?
Sure, like how does
It doesn't bother me.
because the book-
Which article would you like to
No,
discuss?
the books are not being removed. Like a child can still walk anywhere in the library and pick up any book that they want to and check it out. That's not changing with the two sentences here.
Does not say that in.
That's not what it's saying.
But does it say, but the two no, that's understood. If you don't eliminate
Well,
that-
semantically, it's not necessarily understood. So you can use adjectives any kind of way you want. So I can verbalize, articulate with you,
Okay,
using an adjective in 4 or 5 different ways.
if right now a child can walk to the adult section and get a book, and this doesn't say that they can't, then how does that restrict?
That's an
them from
assumption.
doing that? I don't know what else to say on that. But I did hear from both sides that they want this to be a parental right issue. Do we agree on that? That this content should be decided upon by a parent on when and how they are introduced to it? Or is that not something?
Do we, please
So
say that again?
do we agree that this is a parent's choice on when to introduce
What
this?
is a parent's choice?
Yeah, they should be able to introduce this content when and how they choose.
Who, they should be, who is the they?
The parents of children.
Please restate it.
Okay, because I've heard both sides say this from the public. Do we believe that it is the parent's right to decide when and how they are introduced to the content listed in the amendment?
Absolutely.
Okay, so then it becomes a matter of, do we set the parents up for success better if we mix the books with this content into the children's section, or if we put them in another section? So that would be the question that board members need to ask themselves, and I think y'all are welcome to make that decision, but.
Does anyone else have any discussion or comments?
Well, if you don't want the book there, it's stated that you can bring it and present it. The gentleman back there was going to take the book and bring it and present the fact that he did not want the book in the library. That's part of, in our regulations, that's possible to do that.
Anyone else? My turn. I'm going to make a general statement first and then get a little more specific. I don't believe that this amendment is necessary. I hope that the staff knows that they have the full faith and trust of this board to use their expertise, their training, and their experience regarding collection items and their placement, and especially because they know the areas that they serve and the families and the morals and the mores of that area. The staff has been trained, they're efficient, they're following current procedure. And they know whether to display appropriate or inappropriate items. They're not inappropriate. They know how to display the items on a wide range of subjects without bias. Rapides Parish covers about 1,300 square miles, and I didn't realize we are the second largest population by, or excuse me, we're the second largest parish by land area. And that means we have a very diverse culture that lives in this parish with a variety of religious beliefs, a variety of cultures, a variety of lifestyles. And the parish library is charged with serving multiple needs, especially in this age group, for information, education, and recreation. It can't discriminate against certain topics in the collections or displays. Now, you keep saying we're not discriminating and that we would place these items somewhere else, but your amendment does not say they would be placed in another area. It simply says the collection shall not include materials containing obscenity, sexual content, etc. If a patron has a concern regarding a particular item, a procedure is available to address the issue. I want to stop for a minute and ask a question. What caused you to decide that we needed to have this amendment? I recall that you came to the board with a complaint, not with, we have a request for reconsideration. And please refresh my memory. Did you complete the request for reconsideration for the particular title that you talked about?
That's actually a good question. I didn't mention a title in the speech, but actually today I found, when looking through public records, that Celeste sent me an email with that information that I never received. And so we actually had a conversation about maybe it went to my junk folder, I don't know. But as far as why I'm here or why this is happening, I think we have a lot of people here that validates that there's a need for this.
No, but I'm asking you specifically. Before we even had public comment,
Right.
You brought the amendment to our attention. So
Right.
Did you have a personal experience that caused you to bring this to our attention?
I did have a personal experience in the library that I talked about in the May meeting, where my 4-year-old son happened upon a book that my wife and I did not think was appropriate for him to have. And this was a difficult thing for us to do because we weren't expecting it there. So in that regard, yes, I have seen books, or a book, really multiple books, that I think we could relocate to help our parents make that decision on when and how they are introduced to sexual content.
Well, before I continue, I want to repeat that your amendment does not talk about moving it. It simply says that they would not be
Right.
in the collection.
And my position would be that it doesn't need to say that. But again, I've already stated that, and we don't need to get in any further. We can just disagree on that.
I repeat, if the patron has a concern regarding a particular item, there is a procedure available to address the issue. Finally, and most importantly, the last paragraph of the collection development policy talks about parental responsibility, and you just asked about that. A parent of a very young child has the ability to redirect that child if necessary. And I would point out that children under the age of 10 are not allowed in the library unless they are supervised by a parent or a guardian. And I don't believe that 3-year-olds, or most 3 or 4-year-olds, can't read. And so therefore, if a parent is with their young child and the child happens to select a book that is inappropriate, I do believe that parents have the ability to redirect. In older age groups, the decision as to what minors may read, view, or listen to is the responsibility of the parents or guardians. As previously stated, I don't believe this amendment is necessary and that the policy as written should stand. Now, again, I want to look at the amendment as it's presented. It says the collections shall not include materials containing obscenity, sexual content, etc. When would this amendment take effect? Are we talking about after the amendment was added to the policy in place? Or are we talking about going back into the collection and removing items that are currently there? And then who would be the person responsible? What kinds of decisions would they make? I find this would be, in my opinion, a very selective situation, and based on the person who is doing the pulling, excuse my word pulling, but who would be doing the selection would be based in many ways on their own personal feelings. I could be wrong.
Yeah, and that's kind of what's happening right now. Somebody is selecting books and deciding what they are, what goes on there and what doesn't. So nothing would change on that. As far as, I forget the first question, when it would take place. My understanding would be that it would take place immediately, and SLEAS would oversee the enforcement of the policy, which is how board policy works.
So would we be going back? We would be going into the collection that is currently there.
Whatever it takes to comply with the policy would have to take place, and that would be under SLEAS's direction. That's how I understand the board policy enforcement to work.
When we talk about materials that are obscene, we've heard a couple of definitions of obscenity. There's a legal definition. There's a definition that allows for literary expression. The first thing that came to my mind was George Carlin's 7 Dirty Words. I mean, are we going, I know 2 of them, I can't recall the others, but are we going to use that as our standard? When we talk about sexual content, and board members, you know, we've heard a lot of examples. I want to offer a few more, particularly for the smaller. You use the word children, but I'm going to talk about toddlers now. Let's say up until maybe 4 years old. If parents would like to have something regarding potty training, some persons may find that to be obscene or have sexual content because you may have a picture of a child sitting on a potty. If we go on and we talk about a young lady, a preteen girl who may want some information on development, personal development. Yes, indeed, I would hope that her mother, and perhaps it might have to be her father, because nowadays dads have to go into areas that they did not have to before. But if she wanted some more information, for example, on pregnancy, on childbirth, and I'm talking now 11, 12, 13. Would the books that deal with pregnancy and adolescent development and body maturity, would that be considered sexual content? If we had a 14, 15, 16-year-old boy who was interested in animal husbandry, and I'm not from a farm area, so I don't know about artificial insemination, but I have seen pictures. I know cows give milk, but there is a term, I believe it's teat, T-E-A-T, would that be considered sexual content? I just feel as though this amendment as written is extremely broad, it's unclear, it's vague. This area is complicated, and actually we should have gone to a committee before the amendment was presented so that it could have been, the amendment could have been vetted legally and constitutionally. I caution the board members to please remember that we all took an oath, most of us publicly, to support the Constitution and the laws of this state, and to support the right to read, the right to information, etc. So I'm going to ask for some advisement from Mr. Jones, particularly regarding the legality of this as it is written. Mr. Jones.
Yes, Madam President. First of all, I want to say in 34 years of practice, tonight was the best example of public input that I've ever witnessed at any board meeting, or town meeting, or police jury meeting of a public agency. You had 48 speakers, 46 of who spoke on the amendment, 2 spoke about the Johnson Branch Library. I think that's wonderful. There were a lot of good points made. Dr. Hall here brought out the pornography statutes to you, which are set forth under Louisiana law. Ms. Hinkins, House Bill 142, which is a recent amendment that took effect this month, governing pornographic websites. Mr. Gold mentioned how do you interpret events and displays and the material that go in there, and at the same time not discriminate against gender identity folks. Ms. Charbonnet talked about sexual orientation and the vagueness of the amendment, and is there any way that it could be amended to properly reflect what's intended? Ms. Lasavio, who also happens to be an attorney, asked if you had any legal advice yet because of the ambiguity. Mr. Tate talked about preschool children versus teens, and different answers are different for age appropriate. And Ms. Tudor also spoke about the effect of the language and how broad or vague it may be. We've been here several hours, so without trying to give you a 3-hour law school class, I'll try to summarize it. I was asked to look at the policy within the last 2 weeks because your Board of Control manual and your library policies require that an amendment be reviewed to be legally sound and to not contradict any of your established policies, okay? Prior to being brought to the full board. We always start on a constitutional issue, on a law, and within this library board, this new amendment to the collection policy would be a law. Okay, what you're going to have or what you're not going to have, okay? And you start with what is the intent, okay? Reading the materials and reading the email sent by the board member, I believe that it appears to be that the intent is to maybe give another layer of protection for material that children may be exposed to. However, you have 2 categories here. You have preschool and you have teen, okay? Now, protection of children from inappropriate material is certainly a valid public purpose that is allowed, okay? The only question becomes, how are you going to get to where your intent is, all right? And that's where our courts, when they're looking at a law or a policy that is restrictive or may have implications as to particular classes of persons, they conduct they call a strict scrutiny review of the particular policy or law. In other words, is it narrowly constructed and written to accomplish the purpose, yet not tread on the constitutional rights of other people that you don't intend to tread on? Okay? Now, you mentioned that normally what we like to see is any type of law or an amendment come through a committee process. The laws Dr. Hall mentioned come through a committee process with the legislature. They are well vetted, for the most part, prior to hitting the floor for a vote. Now, that doesn't mean that they cannot still be amended on the floor, because that happens all the time. But what it means is you've had multiple set of eyes on the language to point out, okay, that's a problem, we need to amend this, we need to change this. In this particular instance, your Board of Control manual does allow an individual board member to submit a proposed amendment to you. That's proper. And that's what happened in this case. The only take back from that is by not going through a committee process, it doesn't get vetted before it gets here to the floor, okay? It doesn't get reviewed and poked and prodded and language changed, and you get some legal advice as to the implications of what may be. And I say all that to say this: when you're challenged in state or federal court, particularly federal court, and they provide that strict scrutiny review of the constitutionality of that particular policy, they're not going to amend the policy to read like they think it should read. They're either going to approve it or they're going to kick it out as being unconstitutional. One or the other. They're not going to redraft it for you. Now, you may take that opinion and come back and redraft it yourself and try again, but they're not there to do that for you. And whether or not it passes constitutional muster or not, there's two components to that. Is it on its face constitutionally invalid? And the second prong of that is, would it be constitutionally invalid in the manner it's applied, even if it's not on its face, okay? There's been a lot of discussion tonight. And actually, from listening to 48 speakers and the board itself, there's actually some common ground here. There is some common ground, okay, of things that everybody agrees on that maybe should be covered by policy, okay? As it is worded at this moment when presented to you, I think it's my opinion that if there is a significant risk that this would be deemed unconstitutional as written, okay? Now, does that mean that you cannot draft a policy that provides some of the protection that everybody agrees on? No, it doesn't mean that. You very well could do that. It just has to be drafted carefully, and you have to know what the intent is. The pornography and the obscenity statutes that they mentioned, they're 200 to 300 words long. And you say, why are they that long? So that they're self-explanatory. Law enforcement can enforce them, and so generally the public would read them and have an idea as to how they're applied. Now, a lot of times legalese get involved in statutes that only the attorneys can figure out, but that's the basic premise, so that everybody's on notice of what obscenity is and what pornography is. You know, this particular, the wording here, you have obscenity, you have sexual content, you have sexual orientation, you have gender identity, and then you have material that is unsuitable for children. That's open to a lot of interpretation. And you may read those and say, well, common sense would dictate what those are. But everybody in this room has a different level of common sense, okay? And a different interpretation of what common sense is, okay? The person sitting next to you, you could take one of these terms and you're gonna have two little bit different opinions as to what that is, okay? On sexual orientation, one of you is gonna say, well, okay, that's their gender. What's their gender? And the next person next to you is going to say, no, that's whether they're having sex or not. Okay? But like I said, is it possible to draft a policy amendment that would accomplish what everyone has good intentions to do? Yes, it is. And I believe it is. There's a couple of ways to do that. Number one is to have a good committee system to vet something. But number two, the issues we talked about tonight are very hot topics across the nation right now. This is not just local. It's going on in school districts across the country, in state legislatures across the country. As a matter of fact, I do anticipate the Louisiana legislature to take up some of these issues this session. Okay. It's also going on in library control boards across the state. I have read the minutes from 3 different parishes, library control board meetings, and they're having to tackle this same, these same issues. And I say that to say this, a nice, consistent across-the-board policy would be wonderful. These issues are already on the radar of the chief legal officer in the state of Louisiana, and that's the Attorney General. As a matter of fact, most people may have seen this, they may have not, but just last month in December, the Attorney General's office added a portal to their website protecting minors. Anyone can go and report the particular book and where it's located and who the individuals they need to contact are. And his office, he's already dedicated a section to it, will review and contact those individuals. The Attorney General's office also provides, in his civil section, what's known as an advisory opinion service. And we utilize this all the time with public entities. If we are considering a particular ordinance or statute or a policy that is kind of nouveau in the area, with not a lot of established law on, we will often submit those to the Attorney General for an advisory opinion. Now, a board has to vote to do that. So what you get back is some legal advice from the chief executive officer in the state on legal matters that you can feel comfortable proceeding with in what you're attempting to accomplish. So I would say that, and then I would also say that in reviewing your policies and your control manual, this board has 3 standing committees: finance, personnel, and long-range planning. And that's often where a policy amendment will originate. I think I would recommend to the board, and this is just something for you to consider, that you might want to establish a new standing committee. I would say Board Policies and Reconsideration of Materials Committee. That all proposed amendments have to come through that board policy. But in addition, You know, we had several individuals here tonight that held up books that they want to file complaints on. And that's fine, you have a process. However, that would set up actually a committee that can hear those complaints. And you can have 2, 3, 4, however many folks you want to put on the committee to review the book, and then to make a recommendation to the full board if that's necessary. You would be layering another protection level on it, and I think you probably should do that. Because I think by tomorrow, the end of the week, you're gonna have several new written complaints filed in the process that you have now. So, you know, that's two alternatives you have to, I don't know that it benefits the board to pass a policy amendment that is probably immediately going to be challenged in court. In fact, we have one letter from Tulane Law School Law Clinic challenging the vagueness of the amendment. And, you know, we see letters like this all the time, but that's just, I'm sure there are more folks out there that are willing to challenge it. It would probably be of better benefit to the board if you approved an amendment that had been well vetted and had a better chance of withstanding a legal challenge. But that's up to the board. That's not my decision, that's your decision. And I offer the AG's office as an area that we can get some guidance from, and I offer a new standing committee as something that would probably be a benefit to the board.
Thank you.
I will say that I contacted the board president at the time before I sent an email out to everybody with the proposal. I sent the proposal before a month ago, before the last meeting. This is the first time I've ever heard anything about bringing it to a committee. And you said that it's not necessary.
No, I said that your control manual allows the board member to submit it directly. I was just saying that it gets vetted better properly if it comes through a committee process. No, Ms. Morgan, yeah, absolutely. It says that a board member can individually submit.
So do we need a motion to end discussion and then a motion to adopt the policy, or do we do it the same?
Based on the information that Mr. Jones has given, I just feel like this is a really complicated situation, and that we really need some advice. And listening to the concerns of the community as well, I'd like to put forth a substitute motion to yours. And I'd like to move that we seek the advisory opinion from the state of Louisiana's, the Attorney General's office regarding this amendment, because the amendment as it is written, in my opinion, is opening us up, as he said, to a lot of legal consequences. So I'm asking the board, I'm putting up a substitute motion to ask for some advice from the Attorney General's office before we proceed, and hopefully they'll be able to give us something a little clearer than your amendment as stated.
So I'm making a motion to adopt it, and you're making a substitute motion?
A substitute motion.
Okay. Then I motion to adopt the policy, and then you have a substitute motion.
Can we have some?
Is there a second to the substitute motion?
The substitute motion is asking that we have this proposed amendment reviewed to make sure that it is legal according to the Constitution and the state laws, and hopefully letting us know
what our legal responsibility would be. Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, need a roll call vote on the substitute motion.
Ms. Bertrand, would you call the roll, please? And before you begin, I will repeat, this is a substitute motion asking for an advisory opinion from the Attorney General regarding this particular amendment. Oh, bless you, you have to find the
I
roll.
wasn't prepared.
I'm sorry.
All right, I'll just go off the roster. Ms. Jordan, will you be voting also? You're first on the list.
Yes,
Okay.
I vote aye for the substitute motion.
That's aye from Ms. Jordan. Mr. James Morgan,
I oppose the substitute motion.
Mr. Ralph Roach,
No.
Mr. Morris Taft Thomas,
Yes.
Ms. June Arrington,
Aye.
Ms. Dana Cox,
Yes.
Mr. Michael Fairbanks, Ms. Lana Havens,
Yes.
Ms. Irene Hobbs.
Yes.
That's 6 ayes, 3 nays.
The motion passes. Mr. Jones, would you please take care of
I can
the
probably have that,
procedure?
I can have that request for an advisory opinion out by the end of the week.
Thank you. We've had a lot of discussion tonight, and we still have some things that we need to take care of as far as board business goes, but we had a suggestion regarding the creation of a board policies and reconsideration of materials committee. I want to repeat that we currently have a policy that allows for patrons who have a concern regarding a title to have their concern heard and considered. But it is usually addressed by a team from the library, the director and other members of the staff. So in order for us to discuss creation of this recommended committee, we have to add this item to the agenda. In the interest of time, are we able to table this and perhaps have it on at our next meeting? I'm seeing heads nod, so I would recommend that we table the discussion regarding the creation of this particular committee. And we can have some discussion at that time about who the members would be and what their role would be and how their recommendation would come to the board. All right then, is there any more discussion on this reconsideration committee? We have a reconsideration request already in place. We would have a committee that would be a little more expansive. Hearing none, I'm going to move on to the discussion and vote on the revision of the conflict of interest policy. I'm going to turn that, I'm sorry?
Number A is discussion and vote on the date and time.
I'm sorry, I skipped an agenda item. Forgive me, it is late in the evening. We need to move on to new business. the discussion and vote on dates and times for the 2023 meetings. Ms. Harper, who has,
That's just the regular routine discussion, so you can read it. It's the proposed dates that follow the same pattern of our bylaw in,
I'm
with our
sorry.
bylaws.
Okay, so we should have.
Yes, you have it in your packet. I know
All
that.
right. I'm sorry, I had not gotten that far. It looks like this. Yes, it looks like this. Section 5 of Article 2 of the Rapids Parish Library Board of Control bylaws states, at the organizational meeting in January, the board shall adopt the time of the meetings for that year. In compliance with this section, we will adopt the 2023 schedule of regular meetings at the January meeting. The 2023 regular meetings of the Rapids Parish Library Board of Control will be held bi-monthly at 3:30 p.m. The following list is the proposed dates and locations. January 17th here at West Side, the 21st of March here at West Side. Actually, they're all listed at West Side. May 16th, July 18th, September 19th, November 14th. What say you, board?
I move we adopt this calendar.
Awesome. Thank you. It has been moved and seconded. Are you ready for the vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, this particular schedule of meetings has been adopted. Now we can move on to the discussion and vote on the revision of the conflict of interest policy. Director,
Yes, that was,
please take the floor.
thank you. It was brought to my attention that it is not a requirement of the Louisiana LSARS 42119. I've spoken to Mr. Jones regarding this, and I believe Mr. Jones has found it satisfactory to change the language to what is listed on your sheet, which would mean that pursuant to LSA RS 42119, which prohibits the library from doing business with staff members, board members, or their families, all employees and board members of the Rapides Parish Library will report any potential violations to the library business manager or director prior to the execution of any financial commitments, purchases, or contracts. This change in language will make it so that board members as well as staff members are always on the alert to any incongruities or any potential conflicts of interest. Mr. Jones, did you have any further comments on that?
Well, thank you, Madam Director. I did review it, and, you know, I think all of you know, as board members, you're subject to the code of ethics, and you're subject to the nepotism law at all times, whether you sign a form or not. And you don't have to be reminded of it because you're assumed to be aware of it, okay? That's when you sign your oath of office, you know, you sign that you're going to receive a copy of the code of ethics, and that means you're on notice of the provisions of it. And you're required to take 1 hour of ethics training annually, as are the employees. So, you know, just changing the language from you got to sign a form to report any potential violations would be in line with what's required by statute.
And I would interject that it calls for self-reporting, and Ms.
Yes.
It does call for self-reporting, and Ms. Bertrand reminds us frequently of the deadline for completion of the 1 hour, it's not 1 hour. It is not 1 hour, for the required training in ethics for board members.
And the other thing that you're all aware of is, you know, you occasionally have on the agenda the letting of contracts or the conducting of business, and as a board member, if you see an entity listed there that you know creates a conflict for you, you've got to notify the board that, hey, I've got a problem with this one, you know, and I'm going to have to refrain from discussion and refrain from voting and, withdraw from that.
Some of us might recall that we were asked to complete a conflict of interest form and in the past. And as Celeste mentioned, the revision will no longer require that. However, in the interest of transparency, I believe Ms. Brown retains those forms from the previous years. I would like to submit that mine be kept on file. In the interest of transparency, they are secured. At the end of my term, the information for me and my family needs to be destroyed.
And I would ask that you do the same for mine. Please retain mine on file.
Anyone else? But there's several. Okay.
All right.
So, is there any other discussion? What is the board's pleasure? Would we like to, may I have a motion to approve the revised?
I move that we approve the revised conflict of interest policy.
Second.
It has been moved and second that we accept the revised policy. Is there any, are you ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the revised conflict of interest policy has been passed. The next item is discussion and vote on the Johnson Branch contract. Mr. I looked over, I heard a sound. Mr. Fairbanks was chairperson of the committee that addressed some of the issues with the Johnson Branch. So I'm going to turn the meeting over to him.
We heard from Mr. Jones and from Celeste and from the letter from the LHS Corporation. And our recommendation is that we approve a one-year lease to stay in the Johnson Branch with the consideration that more work will be done to clear up the air quality and fix any other problems that there might be.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fairbanks, would you please speak up? I can see faces of people who can't hear, so please.
We recommend, the committee recommends that we sign a lease for 1 year, renewal lease for 1 year for the Johnson Branch, and the Johnson Branch, the owner of the property will continue to improve the air quality to get it up to the standards where it's inhabitable. And any other issues that we've had with problems that have turned up that they know about, and they said working on, so as long as that's continued on to our satisfaction, it will go forward.
Question. Will we have meetings between now and the end of the year or whatever, so we can evaluate what's happening, keep abreast? Because we most want it to continue. Okay, thank you.
And I can't see you, but I can assure you that the board wants to continue to provide library services in that area. And
As we have them.
Pardon me?
As we have them, not the bookmobile.
Not the bookmobile. I agree with you, not the bookmobile. I visited that branch and it is historic, it is lovely, and we hope that we are providing for the needs of the community.
And you are.
And I just want to pause for a minute and just say, I heard a word in Mr. Fairbanks' presentation, and there's so much misinformation out there already. You used the term inhabitable or habitable. The library in LeCount is habitable, folks. It is habitable. There are just some issues that need to be addressed for environmental safety, and they are being addressed, and the board is going to follow to make sure that we have a safe place for everybody. Okay, So what is your pleasure, board members? May we have a motion?
I move that we do the contract for 1 year for the Johnson branch.
I second. It has been moved and second that we have a 1-year lease for that branch and attend to all the things that need to be handled. Are you ready for the question? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We move on to the discussion of our director's evaluation. Ms. Havens is the chairperson of that committee.
I know none of you want a lengthy discussion, so I will make it as brief as possible. The committee met with Ms. Jackie's, and we discussed Salisa's evaluation.
May I interject? I'm sorry, just so that we're clear on this. I have waived executive session, so this would be publicly spoken. So I know there's people with questioning faces who have legal expertise. I have waived executive session. I'm sorry, continue.
She got a 100% rating, which I feel she deserves. She's had a rough year this year, and with the many things that she's handled, I think we owe her a tribute of praise along with the 100% vote. I'm just truly thankful that Salisa's been here to carry us through these rough times. The Personnel Committee would like to recommend a 3% increase in her salary, and as she signs the contract. We discussed the contract that it would be for it was at one time 5 years, that will be a 3-year type contract now, and she will. We're asking that you agree with the 3% raise for Salise. I make that a motion.
I second. It has been moved and second that we approve the standard 3% merit raise for our director. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Again, I'd like to say, tell her how much we appreciate her staff, and we, the board, appreciate what she has done. The last 2 years have not been easy for any of us, and she has carried us through, and I appreciate so much all the work that she does. It's not just a 9-to-5 job with her. It's a continual job, and she's always there for us. So please, if you have a chance, tell her how much you appreciate it.
Thank you very much, members of the board, for your time.
The contract also needs to
I'm
be-
sorry,
That has to be
she-
a separate approval.
I was about to say, I thought it had to be a separate approval, but.
The contract.
I didn't want to tear up and
I'm
speak, so
sorry.
I didn't, I'm
I know.
sorry.
The contract, she will be signing a contract, and I ask that I make the motion that Salise's contract be allowed for the next 3 years. Am I correct on that?
Yes.
Yes. I bring that as a motion.
Board members, you should have, Mrs. Brown gave us a sample of the contract at the last meeting, and there are a couple of changes. Just a minute, let me,
One
thank
of
you. Thank
one
you.
of them is
I've got it.
okay, you got it?
Yeah. On the first page, the director's current compensation is listed, and we've added a provision that says, providing there are not, her salary is listed, and it is stated that she receives an annual increase of 3 to 6%. And we are stating that providing that there are not any other budget constraints. We did mention that at times there have been merit increases that have been denied because there wasn't money. But providing there are no budget constraints for anybody, then her salary is given here. The change from the previous contract that we had to review was 5 years. We are moving to 3 years. And on the last page, there was some discussion about compensation, severance compensation, basically. We had some discussion, the final discussion, I believe, from the committee. The final recommendation was 12 months. Those were the only changes. So I believe the board understood those and that you have approved. I believe we are done.
No, you need to vote on this. That was what the committee did. I'm so sorry. Yes. It's very late.
It is. The hour is late.
But
Okay.
you have the motion.
We have a motion
Just need a second.
that has, it was seconded. We have a motion that was second. Are you ready for the vote?
Yes, we are.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Somebody say amen.
Absolutely.
Thank you. As I was saying, thank you so much, board members, for your time this evening and for your time at home that you have spent. Thank you, library staff, for all of your hard work, for your hours this evening. Thank you, public, for your concerns, for your respectful statements this evening. We appreciate you. Having no further business, this meeting is adjourned.
It doesn't